my business. Segment and witness my musical litmus. Just for your fitness. Beg my forgiveness, my records go Guinness, so be my apprentice. Unicorn hacking in Venice, angel investors, my internet tennis. Still criminal till I spill it to finish. Survival the fittest, the digital menace. I'm still in idle the scene, popping them volumes and sipping caffeine. Marshall web packets in us a routine that I write to a stream with a proxy between. Embedded radix and word, macros disabled, your boy ain't deterred. Wire transferred, social the teller and teller you heard about the king nerd. I keep it swab on the phone, shut off utilities, black out your home. Cracking the wireless back with a drone, keep the Mac clone, D off the zone. Swat your whole crew with a spoof, cops have no need for the truth. Just an excuse for the fool.
All right, welcome back. This is episode 2 of Cancelled with Cyan Bannister, and I'm Lee.
Yeah, dude, I'm Cyan. Should we give these episodes names, or are we just going to call them like episode 1, 2?
I don't even think we really have to name them. I
Okay.
think we can just say hi. But I don't know. I just started it off that way.
Yeah.
It's probably the wrong thing to do.
It's the second one.
So it's factually correct.
It's indeed correct. We have a lot to cover today. I think first things first, you want to talk about a cliffhanger that we had last episode where we were trying to figure out a little bit about the canon of
Well, you know, let's
Mandalorian?
hold on to Baby Yoda just for a second.
All right. You know, I want to go straight to Baby Yo.
We can go to Little Yo-Yo in just a second.
Okay.
But first, we have some people that are wondering why the show's even called Cancelled. So, yeah, I was going to give you a second to talk about that. Because we just watched a video clip that apparently inspired it.
Yeah, so what is the name of the film again? I forgot already.
Something about Garp?
Oh, yeah, The World According to Garp. So there's this scene in The World According to Garp, which I haven't seen in ages until just now. I was just showing it to Lee. But where a plane flies into a house that they're looking at buying while they're looking at buying it. And then I believe it's Robin Williams, says, oh, we'll take it. And his wife is like, but honey, and he's like, but it's pre-disastered. We're safe here. The chances of a plane ever flying into this house again is 0. So, you know, we could call this podcast pre-disastered, but I think calling it canceled is really funny given the state of cancel culture and like how everyone's getting canceled right now, because I thought it's funny. You can't cancel something that's already canceled.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So we're canceled.
Yeah, you can't cancel us.
Can't cancel me. Can't cancel Lee.
No, we're okay with it.
And we're all right with that. You know, I think we're obviously not going to do things specifically to get canceled, but, you know, who knows? We might accidentally say some shit, you know, and then before we know it, pitchforks.
Not accidentally. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, it's bound to happen.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's unavoidable.
We're canceled.
Yeah. So we canceled ourselves.
Yeah.
So you can't cancel
Took
us.
the power into my own hands.
I'm the canceller, not you.
So we're technically not going to talk all about cancel culture. It will come up because it is a hot topic at the time. And so we might explore ideas around things in the past that, you know, if you were to try to do them today, historical things, that it wouldn't fly. So it would be totally canceled today.
And talk about things that you probably can't do today. Now we can go into Star Wars.
Aha, yes. Yeah. Star Wars is one of those films that, actually that's kind of the inspiration too for the title of the show is that we were watching Star Wars to get prepared for the new one coming out. And I remember you turning to me and saying, you know, Star Wars would be canceled today. And I was like, wow, you know, you're so right. Like, that shit would not fly. Like, you know? You couldn't have Slave Leia. You wouldn't have, like, this whiny, you know, I don't know, how do you describe young Anakin? Yeah. But you wouldn't have that.
Well, and you have I don't know how people would feel about it, but you have, like, a budding child romance.
Yes, a budding child romance. You have siblings who kiss. Mm-hmm.
And then you have space creatures that obviously are analogs to different cultural people in their little affectation to their voices.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
To, like, you know, and they're like, oh, we can't trust those people.
The galactic traders.
Yeah, they're always scheming for some
Jar.
reason.
I mean, come on, Jar Jar. That's as bad as you can get. I mean, it's pretty bad. But yeah, there's all sorts of things in there. There's also like slaves. There's actual genocide. You know, like planetary destruction.
No, there's infanticide.
There's infanticide.
Because-
There's even in The Mandalorian, there's child abuse. There's Yoda abuse.
Like punching Baby Yoda in the
What's
head.
interesting is that didn't get canceled.
No.
Like, people are just like, how dare you? Because it's not a real baby, doesn't look human or whatever. So there's like, the guy's just like punching the baby in the head, right? Like, what the fuck? That's messed up. But yeah.
But to be fair, little Baby Yoda can kill like anything he wants because apparently he's already a Jedi Master
Yeah.
with the Force.
I don't know why he didn't choke him out.
He could.
Because I wanted to.
Yeah.
I was sitting there watching and I was like, that guy, that stormtrooper, he's going down.
Using his little Baby Yoda head for a punching bag.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you. Leave Baby Yoda alone. I mean, I was really mad, actually.
Just wait.
Like, really mad.
Just wait. Season 2, Baby Yoda's going to get his revenge.
Oh, yeah, totally.
He's going to take them all down.
Yep.
Especially with Moff... what's his name?
Are you talking about the chicken guy
Moff
from
Gideon? Moff
Breaking
Gideon?
Bad?
Yeah, Moff Gideon. Yeah, the Breaking Bad chicken...
The
Moff
chicken guy.
Gideon Jedi
The meth
killer.
Actually, you know, it's very fitting we should talk about him because we have some poems we're going to read today.
About meth.
About
we had some meth
methamphetamines.
poems.
Yeah.
We have all sorts of stuff to talk about today.
Yeah, so Chicken Man.
And if you haven't picked up the theme, I don't know about Cyan. I'm not going to speak for her, but I'm very ADD. So
I am too.
I'm all over the place. So it's hard for me to have one conversation. I'll have 5 in the same time span. So
Yeah. And if you
It's
want
just
us to
more fun.
focus on one particular topic for the whole podcast, that's just not going to happen.
yeah. So
It's impossible.
yeah.
I have way too many interests to single in on one thing.
Very
I mean,
eclectic.
I guess we could have a non-stop podcast about Baby Yoda, but that'd probably get pretty old. We got to throw in some methamphetamines.
Yeah, you can't do. Well, I mean, what about Baby Yoda on meth?
Oh man, Baby Yoda needs a little bit of meth. He sleeps too much.
He's very sleepy.
Very sleepy baby.
Yoda. But a 50-year-old baby needs his sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's growing.
He's down with the bone broth right now, so maybe next he'll do what do you call that coffee with the fat in it? The bulletproof coffee.
Bulletproof? Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Baby Yoda will get into bulletproof coffee
With
instead of
the,
meth.
what is it? Medium chain triglycerides? MCT oil?
MCT oil. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Medium chain triglyceride.
From a single source origin.
It's promoted on a very popular podcast.
Is it?
Yeah.
Which one?
Joe Rogan.
Oh, Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Maybe
podcast.
someday we will be as popular as Joe Rogan.
That would be awesome.
That'd be pretty badass.
I started
One
listening.
can dream.
I started listening to Joe Rogan before he had a podcast. He had a thing called what was it? The Joe Show. And so it was basically he and Brian Redban, to where he was just following Joe around, recording all the stuff on a camcorder after the comedy show or comedy store, after they have their stand-up and stuff. So it was like the after show sort of thing. And that's pretty much where the podcast started. So they would issue these little videos on the website, and so they'd be maybe 30 minutes, an hour long. And you'd have all these people just shooting the shit after the shows and just having crazy interactions with fans that would come up to them. And it just turned into a podcast.
That's great.
Yeah. So anything can happen.
Yeah, I don't think we should have any video because I don't think anyone should know what we actually look like.
Well, eventually we'll have video. We have 3 cameras.
Oh, shit.
We just have to finish the studio.
I'll have to show my mullet.
Yeah.
For those who don't know,
I saw the Floby action today for the
I
first
didn't
time.
use a Flowbee this time. Okay, so for those out there who are new to my hair cutting techniques, I normally use a Flowbee. And if you don't know what a Flowbee is, you got to head on over to YouTube and search for Flowbee and see the glory of the Flowbee for yourself.
It's one of the wonderful inventions from the 1980s that we grew up with on
Yeah.
television.
Yep. So you hook this
As
thing
seen on
to your
TV.
Yeah, seen on TV. You hook this thing to your vacuum cleaner, and it sucks the hair up into this tube. And there are these cutters that cut the hair in all one uniform length.
It's just like a rotating sort of cutter blade, right?
Yeah, they don't really rotate. They kind of just like I don't what is
Oh, it's just like a shear blade?
yeah like a shear
okay,
blade.
Okay.
Well, they kind of like I don't know what do you call that. Like I'm
They're
making
like
this
the little-
movement.
Yeah, they're like the little cross-cutting.
Cross-cutting. Yeah,
Okay.
cross-cuts.
That's kind of like what shears are. You
okay.
just like buzz cut yourself.
Yeah, so they're cross-cutting shears, and it sucks all the hair up into the vacuum cleaner. So the brilliance of it is there's nothing to clean up. Well, last night I did not use the Flowbee. I was dealing with sort of a mohawk situation where my mohawk was growing too long and kind of like folding over.
It was like flopping over.
Like an ice cream cone gone wrong.
It melted.
Like,
You had
it
melted ice cream.
at the
Ice
top.
cream hair.
It was really bad. So last night I had it. I was like, I'm done. So I pulled out my clippers and I put on the number 8 clipper and I just went for it. But it's all party in the back, and I don't even know if you can call this business time in the front, but it's definitely a mullet.
Well, you still have more hair than I do. I'm jealous. Unfortunately, my genetics, I started losing hair. It started thing out in like 19, right when I started college. Which, come on, when you're in college, you don't need hair, right? It's not an important time.
Yeah, not an important time at all.
No. Early dating years, you don't need that. Just go ahead and look like you're 45 when you're 19.
Well, you've got a beard.
I do have a beard, so all my hair stopped growing on the top of my head and just started falling through my face. So it's running all the way through my skull.
Well, I never see you without a hat, so I never even thought of you not having hair.
Yeah, I mostly shave my head most of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you always have a hat
I
on.
always have a hat on, because if you don't, you get a sunburn on your head.
Yeah, for one thing that people should know about Lee is he's kind of like the Queen of England. So the Queen of England wears these little pins.
Little brooches.
Yeah, little brooches whenever, something's going on. She has to appear someplace or take a photograph or whatever. And these brooches have like historical significance. And she's making a really subtle, like,
Political
statement, sometimes actual plain diss against people with her brooches. There's blogs about this. You can read about it. Well, Lee does that with his hats. So his hats always have some sort of subtlety to them.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on today with Yellowstone.
Well, it's just, I'm not walking around town very much, so it's just a hat that matches today. And I like national parks. I love to go visit and hike and do all that stuff. But I do. So, like, when I go into the South, I will wear one of the Alamo Draft House hats that has the gay pride flag on it.
Nice.
Yeah. And then when I'm here walking around San Francisco, I tend to wear an NRA hat.
Well, I bet that riles people up.
It's wonderful.
I feel safe with you when I walk around town and you have your NRA hat on. I also like your Bill Murray hat.
Oh, yeah, of course. That's kind of my neutral hat because everybody loves Bill Murray. So
everybody loves Bill Murray.
When I was talking to Matt Kibbe, that's the hat that I was wearing.
Yeah.
About the Hong Kong protest stuff.
So that's your neutral sign.
That's my neutral sign. That's my neutral hat. That's my peacemaker hat where I get along with everyone.
Nice. I need something like this. I don't have anything like this. I don't have like a secret,
so there's
message system.
There's a method to my madness.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like your
So
passion.
after the San Francisco declared people that own guns in like the Second Amendment domestic terrorists, I just wanted to make sure that they knew who the terrorist was. Me.
Yeah, Lee.
Please.
Can you say that?
Please.
I don't know. Can you say that?
Well, we're already canceled, so why
shit.
not? So, if you have a problem with guns, then come talk to me about it.
Yeah, well, you know a lot about guns. Maybe we can do something at some point where you can break down, gun ownership and responsible ownership and
Oh, for sure.
all that good
I've been
stuff.
shooting guns since I was a kid.
Yeah.
No shame. I love guns. I love machines. My grandfather was a master mechanic, and guns were just a more simple, compact machine. So I just love the working of machines and engineering. So
Yeah, I grew up in a gun household and in a gun state with friends who had guns, and we had rifles in the corner of our house, not locked up. You should probably lock them up now, but we it's just a part of our lives, and no one ever got hurt.
You've seen my safes.
Oh yeah. Lee has
I have
in an undisclosed
in
location.
an undisclosed location.
Several very large safes,
Vaults.
literally vaults.
7 feet
Filled
tall
with
doors.
guns.
Yeah.
So when the apocalypse comes, the zombie apocalypse, Lee's got your back.
Yeah, of course. Unless you're trying to take things from me.
Unless you're a zombie.
Yeah. Or whatever.
Yeah, trying to give you a disease or trying to take stuff.
So, but the way I also think about it, you said, if you close doors, or you should lock up guns. I also view my house as a safe. So I've already got my door locked, so that should send the message not to come in or not to steal things. So technically, I think it's already locked up. So before I came to California, I would always have an AK-47 fully loaded, like over in the corner, just in case. You never know. Have some unfriendly, visitors come by. You never know. 2 o'clock in the morning.
You never know.
Never know.
Well, I was looking into that sort of situation here in San Francisco, and this, I jokingly wanted to make a show out of this because it was ridiculous, because I was trying to figure out what my rights were if somebody actually broke in to my house, like busted out the window, start crawling through the window, and I identify that that person does not belong there. They're not family, whatever. Am I allowed to shoot them? And the answer is complicated. It turns out not necessarily. Apparently, you're supposed to meet force with force. So if they are not armed, or if they are not actively beating me, various things like that, apparently it becomes complicated about whether or not you can use that sort of force. You have to feel like you're in imminent danger.
You have to have the feeling of imminent danger to your life. So there has to be present a threat to your life or the life of others, or grievous or great bodily harm. So not even the thinking that this person's going to just murder me. The legal threshold is grievous or great bodily harm.
Yeah, and I guess how do you know that? There obviously when someone breaks through your window, you're going to have like this surge of adrenaline. You're going to be scared. Really scared. Do I stop and ask questions? Do I need a clipboard that says "excuse me"?
No, you need a waiver. You need a release.
Can you let me know what sort of harm
you have to sit them down at your coffee table
plan
and say,
on inflicting on me today?
Excuse me, Mr. Assaulting Gentleman. Please sit down. We need to discuss what we're going to do here.
Yeah.
I need you to read over these terms and agreements, and please sign at the bottom and date it.
Yeah, and I need to know what sort of force I can use in return.
Is it okay for me to shoot you because I'm scared?
Yeah.
Just agree to that statement, and then we'll proceed.
Yeah. That's basically how I netted out at the end, and I was like, we should make a YouTube video of this whole scenario, of trying to figure out how to navigate gun ownership in San Francisco.
It's pretty ridiculous. So you ask about what could be great bodily harm. So like I said, the person doesn't need to have a knife or a gun in their hand. They don't even need to have a weapon, period. Let's say that you are a 4.5 foot tall woman or a 5 foot tall woman, small build, and this person is 6.5 feet tall, looks like a linebacker. You have reasonable belief that you could suffer great bodily harm. So it's justifiable. That person could just physically harm you terribly. Or let's say that it's a group of people. Maybe one has a baseball bat. So when you're outnumbered, that's a potential or a reasonable risk to your life. You could be jumped. You could have they could all just push you down and kick on you and whatever. That's a threat to life.
Well, I'm on blood thinners, so I can slip and fall on a banana peel, and it's a threat to my life.
Yeah. So in
a baseball bat could kill me.
In states from the region that I'm from, we have what's called castle doctrine. So as soon as you kick through the door, you're already kind of fucked. Because it's reasonable to believe that you're in there for bad purposes. You already breached my domicile. You're already posing a threat to my life and the safety of my family. End of story. You shouldn't be there, and you made a really bad choice.
Well, I also read that some crimes, breaking into homes here in San Francisco, are not considered violent crimes. They're quality of life crimes. Mm-hmm. And so, breaking into a car and stealing contents of a car.
That's just property.
So it's all property. And if they come in and they just take your laptop and they're like, hey, I'm just taking your laptop, whatevs. You can't do anything about it.
I'm not really.
I think you're supposed to just retreat.
I'm not really going to agree with that. As soon as somebody kicks on my door, you're fucked. Period.
Well, yeah, but.
Yeah, because the.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm just talking about the technicality of what would happen if it were to go to court. Mm-hmm. That would be that's the part that I worry about.
Well, I guess it depends according to what Chesa Boudin is feeling. And if you are in a protected class, maybe then you will get away with crimes. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
The laws seem to be very arbitrary in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So
Most certainly.
yeah, arbitrary laws are not enforceable, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know why you should have laws if you don't enforce them in the first place.
Yeah.
They should just
It
not exist.
this shouldn't just be up to discretion. So when somebody physically harms you or assaults you, then that's a crime. It shouldn't be up to discretion.
It's interesting, like, what people think assault is. I don't think people realize that if you go up to someone and let's say I snatch your Yellowstone hat off the top of your head, and I take it off your head because, screw Yellowstone. And I'm like,
Yellowstone's canceled.
Yeah, Yellowstone is canceled. That's a form of assault.
It is.
And I don't think people realize that, because I hear people talk about all the time about how, if that person says this or that person does that or wears whatever, I'm going to punch him.
If you just
I'm going to take the hat off.
If you just open up your bottle of water and sling water all over somebody's face, that's assault.
Yeah, milkshakes.
Yeah.
If you fling a milkshake at someone, it's assault.
Like with Andy, what's his name? Andy Go?
Yeah.
Yeah, when they were quote unquote milkshaking him, that's assault.
Yeah.
And Portland didn't.
And they're
really
like, oh, it's
pursue
no
anything.
big deal. It's just a milkshake.
It's just milkshake with maybe a little bit of concrete in it. I mean, what's wrong?
Yeah. Just a
Might
little bit of
burn your
poison.
eye a little bit.
Yeah. So, yeah, assault is assault.
So anyway, yeah, we
So-
can have a long Second Amendment discussion sometime.
Yeah, maybe not for this podcast. Maybe
Not
we
for
can
that
maybe we
one.
can save that for Hamilton, the studio thing. Sorry, what are we calling it? Libertania. Libertania in the Hamilton. We are in the Hamilton studio right now.
Or I do have a friend that shoots competitive skeet, so we can go shoot some skeet, and then we can do a podcast after.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
They shoot trap skeet.
I'm
It's
worried
really
that I
tricky.
actually wouldn't hit a darn thing.
I guarantee you would hit something.
I feel like I wouldn't.
You would. Because, so there's two different types of things that sort of scenarios you can shoot in skeet. You can shoot traditional American skeet, which has the towers, and they kind of throw in a crisscross pattern, so they throw across you at an angle. And those move fairly slow. They're like 30, 35 miles an hour. So you can shoot both of them pretty quick. Then there is trap skeet, and then that uses a bunker, and it shoots, you have a whole line of clay throwers buried underground, and you don't know which one is going to be throwing next. It's just totally random. And then instead of 30 miles an hour, they throw them at like 75. So it's
Yeah, I'm not
really
going to hit
fast.
those.
Yeah, it's really tricky.
I mean, come on.
It's really tricky. I kind of surprised my friend that was shooting competition, because I was shooting like 70% of them when I went out there. And he's like, have you ever done this? I said, no, I'm used to shooting ducks.
There's some cool reality show where like they shoot things, and it's like a marksman, whatever show, and they're like in a Jeep and they're like driving down a dirt road and shooting,
Top Shot?
Top Shot, yeah,
Yeah.
where you win like a gift card for Bass Pro Shop.
Well,
Like, that's the prize.
Well, like per challenge.
Yeah.
I think the grand thing is probably like $100,000 or something.
I just
Grand
think it's so
challenge,
cool
maybe.
because at the very end he's like, you get $100 to go to Bass Pro Shop.
All right, I can go get my Cabela's ammo now.
Yeah. I love Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, I prefer Cabela's, but then Bass Pro Shop bought Cabela's, and it's all the same company.
Yeah, Bass Pro Shop has ducks, right? And they have like fish ponds.
They have little fish inside, yeah.
Yeah, they have these massive fish ponds and ducks, like
should-
actual ducks.
When you go to Memphis, Tennessee, you should go to that one. We have what's called the Pyramid in Memphis, and they used to have concerts and basketball games and everything there. Bass Pro Shop bought the Pyramid because they stopped using it for concerts. So now you can go inside, float around inside of a man-made pond inside of the. They have boats floating around in a man-made pond inside their Bass Pro Shop inside the Pyramid, and you can sit there and fish.
Oh man, I think our goal for this podcast should be to be sponsored by Bass Pro Shop.
It should be.
How cool would that be? I don't think there's another Silicon Valley podcast
No, just have
out
an
there. I feel
outdoor
like this is
podcast.
an opportunity for them.
Yeah, we need an outdoor sponsor.
Yeah, outdoor sponsors.
I would love it.
We're looking for outdoor sponsors. If you know of anyone from Bass Pro Shop and they would like to sponsor our podcast, we would love to talk to them.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything outdoors. I shoot bows and arrows and hunt and fish and all of that. So I would love it. They could just give me a game, like a little gift card.
Yeah, but the thing that I love about Bass Pro Shop is the tactical gear.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really into tactical gear, and I have like a weird obsession with it from a design standpoint.
With
I love
bug out bags and
what do you call that
survivalist.
system? It's called Molly.
Oh, Molly.
Molly.
Yeah.
Molly. Okay.
And so those are like for those that aren't used to that, so you have vests that have modular components that you can add to a vest, and they'll have like strips of Velcro and little snaps, and you can move stuff around and just add pouches to however you want your carrier, your vest arranged.
Yeah, it's super sweet. If you go to Amazon, you can buy Molly gear, and it's super inexpensive, and a lot of it, made in the United States as well, because military uses a lot of it. And
a lot of those companies are actually started by vets. So
Yeah.
you can, if you really want to support American-made stuff, you can support people that have started companies after the wars, and then they create these little companies making tactical or military or outdoor gear, and also hire a bunch of wounded vets and vets that they've known, and so they make it like a veteran-owned business.
What I don't understand, though, is maybe I have to do this myself, is I want someone to start one that has Hello Kitty on it. Like, where is the tactical gear with Hello Kitty?
They do have guns that are painted with Hello Kitty.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pink guns and
I've
little
seen Hello
Kitties.
Kitty rifles.
Yeah.
But where is the Hello Kitty tactical gear?
Well,
Like, if I'm hiding in a forest, I don't want to be seen. Well,
an anime forest.
an anime forest.
You could hide in an anime forest. I'm not sure about a real one.
If I'm hanging out with Unikitty from the Lego movie, I really need, bright, hot pink tactical gear with kitties all over it.
Of course. I mean, if you're over at what is it, the Ice Cream Museum here in San Francisco? Is that or
Yeah, ice cream museum.
Yeah, you could hide out there with
Exactly.
with pink.
Yeah, where's that
gear.
stuff? Like,
It's very.
I
urban.
want tactical gear that looks like sprinkles. So I'm like a cupcake wandering in the woods. I'm just gonna confuse the deer.
Well, I mean, they can't see like a lot of spectrum of colors, so if you might actually be invisible with pink camo to
That's-
deer because they're
Hey,
colorblind.
There you go. I'm onto something.
So it might work.
Yeah, I'm onto something.
You'll be seen by every human being, but a deer might not see you.
I have to be careful about like smelling like a cupcake though, because that would attract a bear.
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
trouble.
so I can't. I could look like a cupcake, but don't want to smell like a cupcake.
And by the way, you will smell a bear from a mile away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you've ever been out in the woods, you definitely can smell a bear.
I've never smelled a bear.
Yeah, over in the ranch in Arkansas.
I hope to go to Build a Bear, but I've never
Build a
smelled
bear. Build a bear, slightly different. But at my ranch in Arkansas, there are at any time 3 or 4 bears around that area, and so you can definitely smell them. They smell very musky and just dirty.
So
to
speaking of
describe.
bears and Build a Bear, like where are we on Build a Bear? Any updates?
I am still trying to get some inside information from Disney
Ooh.
to see when the official licensed release date is. Build-A-Bear is being very hush-hush. And the people that I've called to Build-A-Bear,
They will flog them if they tell us anything.
yeah, well,
I got that impression when I called. It's like,
Well,
I will be put through torture chambers if I tell you anything
one of the
about
people at
Baby
Build-A-Bear
Yoda.
that I was speaking with, told him, I was like, oh, well, I think I'm looking for around this time period. They're like, oh, did they tell you a date? I said, no, but I have...
Yes, March 2nd. Do you have any... You gotta learn how to social engineer here.
Yeah, and they're
lady.
like, oh, well, they haven't even told us the date. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, I'm not looking for information from your company. I'm looking from the company that's licensing your company.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to go a little bit above your head.
All right. Well, we'll keep everyone posted on the Build the Bear Baby Yoda party.
It's going to be the best party.
It'll be the best party in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
In all the galaxies.
So yesterday, you went ahead, or do we just want to just go straight to Baby Yoda? We're already talking about him, kind of.
Yeah, let's just talk about
Right.
Baby
So
Yoda.
last podcast we were talking about the timeline of Star Wars, and I was a little confused. You were correct.
Haha.
That
Okay, it's really super rare that I'm right. Just FYI.
Well, I'm used to
I'm usually full of shit.
I'm used to being wrong, so it really doesn't matter too much. But so the Mandalorian series is after the Jedi,
Okay.
Return of the Jedi. In my head, it still is kind of shaky, just because of the stuff that we've seen in Mandalorian, to where that little creature that helped out Mandalorian, Mando? What's his little
Oh,
name?
I don't
Like the
remember.
the freed slave guy?
The guy who's like, this is, I have spoken.
Yeah, I have spoken. I have
spoken.
decided, or whatever.
Yeah.
So that little dude had mentioned that the Jedi were some ancient wizards or whatever, like talking about it like it's forgone way back history. And if it falls after Return of the Jedi, it's not all that long ago. So I think that was probably what was throwing me off. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I read into things too deeply.
Especially Star Wars.
Of course. So it is not after the current movie series.
Okay.
It is after Return of the Jedi.
Awesome.
But that also raises some questions about Baby Yoda himself.
Yes.
So, in episode 1, there is Yaddle.
Which I didn't know about. You pointed out Yaddle to me.
She was in the Jedi Council. She's sitting in the little meeting room. And so that's Yaddle. That's Yoda's wife.
Is it proven that it's his wife? Or did they have like a fling?
Well, the funny thing is George Lucas has never actually said what species Yoda is or what planet Yoda comes from. So it's kind of rare to have two of those species that are unknown, essentially, in the same place. So really, Yaddle, she was a Jedi. And before episode 1, she had actually been captured and imprisoned for like 100 years in a cave. So she and she was a Padawan at the time. And then
As long as she was a baby, that probably was fine. As you can see, you can live 50 years and not really do much.
Well, I think in episode 1, I think she was around 500.
Okay.
So she's like 200 years younger than Yoda, because Yoda likes him young.
Okay.
He went for a younger lady. So yeah, she's like 500 years old. But anyway, she was locked up and in prison for like 100 years in a cave, and that's where she became like one with the Force. So she finished her training because her Jedi Master was killed. And so when she returned to the Jedi Council, that's when she became a full-fledged Jedi Master. But after episode 1, she disappeared. She's not in episode 2, right?
No.
Yeah. So
Does she ever appear again? Because I don't think she does.
No, she doesn't.
So she runs off and has Baby Yo.
Well, first, I think she was doing stuff for the Jedi Council, maybe trying to find what was going on with the Sith or whatever, because later, in some of the books outside of the film, Darth Vader actually kills her. So sometime in the series of like maybe between episode 4 and 6, sometimes Vader kills her. And I think that would kind of take place probably around episode 4, right?
Right, I think you are.
Because if Baby Yoda today is 50, Baby Yoda would have had to have been born in episode 4 or 5.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Maybe. So the other question is, if this is a baby from Baby Yoda, or from Yoda and Yaddle, then...
Are they going to call it Yodel?
I don't know. It could be Yodel.
Yodel?
Yodel.
I call him the Yodelorian.
So...
Is he going to wear like a Mandalorian outfit?
I don't know. He's a foundling. He might become like a little...
He's supposed to, right? Or it, or she.
Yeah. Except for like his little ears are going to stick out from the helmet.
Yeah, unless they make like special little helmet things. Like,
Little
but
ear holes.
are we going to have like a tiny little miniature Mandalorian
I don't know.
that rides around in a little carriage?
I'm just wondering, like, how... I mean, come on. If we're doing the series, then he's going to be a baby forever.
Right.
Because
he has to be, or it has
it's
to
already
be she.
50 years old.
I don't know why we just assume it's a boy, but you know.
Because we all hope that it's going to be like Yoda reincarnate.
Yeah, I
think.
guess so. Yeah. Yeah. But the future is female, Lee.
It could be. I'm canceled because I already just assumed that. But
You're canceled.
Baby Yoda is male.
Yeah, you're canceled.
But I guess Yoda and Yaddle got kind of weird on Dagobah sometime, like an episode.
They broke their Jedi oath.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
Had a relationship.
Or maybe they have immaculate like conception as part of their species. Like maybe they just appear.
So they're like asexually reproduced?
Something like that, yeah.
Or is Yoda Jesus?
Maybe.
Baby Yoda
Maybe
is
the
the
answer
Jesus.
to everything in the universe is Baby Yoda is Jesus.
Baby Yoda's the new savior.
Yes, Baby Yoda that would make Yoda God.
It could. It could. But here's the thing: if Baby Yoda exists now, what about the last 3 films? What happened then?
I don't know.
Because Moff Gideon he already
I can't call him Moff Gideon. I can only call him Chicken Man.
Moff Chicken Man.
Moff Chicken Man.
Moff Chicken Man went ahead and destroyed the Mandalorian. He went to Mandalore. If you look at I think it's the last episode, or was it the very last episode, to where he cuts through the TIE fighter with his saber?
Yeah.
All right, so that is actually a Mandalorian lightsaber. There's only one of them. And that came from Jedi Master Vizsla, which was the only Mandalorian Jedi to ever be on the council.
And it's black.
And it's black. It's like an obsidian blade that glows white. So it's a black blade, glows white. So he had made that for himself, and then he was killed. And then after he was killed, that lightsaber was taken to the Jedi Council and kept there until the Mandalorians raided it and then stole it back because it was part of their heritage or whatever.
Didn't Darth Maul have it for a period too, or something?
I think in some of the comics, maybe some of the novels, I think he did.
Yeah, I went down the internet rabbit hole looking, for the black lightsaber, and discovered that Darth Maul had something to do with it.
I don't know if Maul was the one that actually killed Vizsla or not. I don't
Sorry
remember.
for coughing. You're not supposed to do that on podcasts.
It's okay.
All right.
We don't have a cough button though.
Yeah, we have no cough button, so sorry about that.
I don't know if anybody's ever been in a radio studio or radio station, but a lot of times they have little cough buttons.
Yeah.
You can just push that. If you're
Bleep
gonna
out the cough.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually once Bass Pro Shop sponsors us.
Yeah. A couple gift cards
So
here and there.
if you want us to stop coughing, reach out to Bass Pro Shop. Tell them the sponsor canceled the podcast.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's pretty much all I know about the Mandalorian and the timeline.
Okay.
So I guess Gideon is after just trying to suck out all the little midichlorians out of little Baby Yoda and probably inject to himself to make himself like a
Does that even work?
I don't know. Sucking out little Baby Yoda.
Maybe it's kind of like the whole thing where people think Peter Thiel sucks out blood from young interns
blood
who are
boys.
universal donors. And they're his blood boys. Maybe it's like that. Maybe Baby Yoda's a blood boy.
Or is Peter Thiel a Jedi?
Bum, bum, bum.
Is he force inclined or forced? What are they
Force
call it?
sensitive.
Force sensitive.
He might be. He might be force sensitive.
He might be able to move stuff with his mind.
It's very possible. He's a very smart guy. Speaking of smart guys, we were asked some questions on Twitter.
We were.
Some of them require research, like the what was it? The fourth generation or the fourth?
The fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, the fourth industrial
from Sherrod.
revolution. I don't feel educated enough to talk about that.
Yeah, sorry, Sherrod.
So
we'll have to probably do that later, maybe after.
Yeah, I think that's something I could go off and study and think about and come back with something a little more fruitful to say about that. But I feel very ill prepared to talk credibly about it. So what were some of the other topics?
Alejandro was asking about the next 20 years in tech.
The next 20 years in
what
tech.
do we envision might be the next 20 years? What's the direction that tech's going?
So I actually really like this question because I have developed a new hobby of buying letters off eBay that are handwritten, and they are from, all walks of life, prison inmates, travelers, people who were poor, people who were well off, and everything in between. But one of the things I came across recently was a group of journals from who was a boy at the time in 1907 named Wallace. And
Little Wally.
Little Wally. And I've been reading Little Wally's journal. And mostly Wally talks about chopping wood and, the weather and
Getting to take a bath.
yeah, exactly. The fortunate chance of getting to take a bath. And in the summer, swimming in a pool. But one of the interesting things that caught me was the mention of seeing an airplane for the first time. and how excited he was to go to Chicago with his dad to look at 3 airplanes in the sky. He's like, there wasn't just one, there were 3.
Wow.
And then at nighttime, he was really excited because they went around looking at signs that were lit up. Electric signs is what he called them. Now, this is like 1910, I think, was that journal particularly. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, it is 2020.
Yeah.
This is like not that far ago.
No.
Where, so like predicting the next 20 years is near impossible.
Yeah.
Because the rate of change is so hard to perceive, really.
Well, you only had 50 years in between that time frame of little Wally writing about planes to the point to where we went to the moon.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I think we kind of take for granted the stuff that's happening because it's happening so fast that it's hard to digest it all. But in my lifetime, I knew a time in which nobody could call me. We talked about this before. Yeah. Like, you know, the concept of, oh, hey, Lee's not home right now, leave a message. That's gone. Like, nobody answers the phone and it's like, oh, yeah, Lee's not home. You know, call back later.
Now it's, oh, Lee's not picking up the phone. What's wrong?
Yeah, is he alive?
Let me send him a text message. Oh, he's not responding to that. Let me send him a message on so-and-so messenger. And then maybe other messenger. There's something wrong.
Yeah, there's something wrong. I need to track his phone.
Yeah.
And his whereabouts at all time, real time. But that didn't used to be the case not so long ago. Like, so not so long ago, you know, people had phones at home and they answered them if they felt like it and didn't answer it, they didn't feel like it.
Like when Wally was going to school, Wally was probably told, okay, walk 5 or 10 miles that way to go to school. Carry your books.
Yeah.
And we'll see you later today.
We'll see you later.
I'm back.
Yeah, we'll see if
I'll
you're
see
alive.
you for dinner.
See you for dinner. But we've just kind of lost track of that. So I think in order to predict the next 20 years, you kind of have to look at the past. And I don't think we do enough of that where we take into account, like, the fact that Wally's, like, marveling over electricity, you know, in 1910. You know, today we don't stop to think of how good we have it. Like, we're carrying around supercomputers in our pocket, you know, and a lot of people, you know, talk about industrial waste associated with phones and things like that. But if you think about all of the electronic devices that have been eliminated, the fax machine, the amount of paper, you know, all these letters that I've been getting off of eBay, those don't exist anymore. They're being sent via
or
text.
even just a little calculator. We don't even buy
Don't have
calculators.
calculators.
You just have your phone.
Yeah, don't have multiple phones in the house, don't have pay phones, don't have... So if you think about all the things that the cell phone replaced, you know, it cut down on manufacturing quite a bit.
And even just little digital calculators. I mean, that was a pretty pivotal moment back in like the 1960s,
Calculators
70s.
were a big deal.
It
If you
was a
look at
huge
like
deal.
Byte magazine and all of those magazines from the 80s, it was like...
They were very
They were kind of
expensive.
sexy too.
Yeah.
Like, people were like posing with their calculator.
It's like, you don't have to do these long form calculations anymore. You
Nope.
can just do, and it'll make your life better in accounting or whatever.
Well, they used to call people, like human people, computers. Mm-hmm. And so...
Well, not even
eventually-
that. Like, they had a slide rule. So when my mom was in school, she used a slide rule. So if you want to do logarithmic calculations or whatever, you use a slide rule. You didn't have a calculator.
Yeah.
It's literally a piece of wood. It's a piece of wood, little slash marks on it, and then you adjust the 3 ends of the wood to see what the calculation is.
Yeah, I think the problem with trying to predict the next 20 years is the same problem we had in the 80s when they tried to predict the future. Like right now we're supposed to have flying cars, hoverboards, you know, food replicators.
Or Jaws that like comes out of the billboard and bites you.
Yeah,
in
stuff
town
like
square.
that.
Yeah.
We're getting closer to that.
Everything that Back to the Future told us we were supposed to have.
We don't have hardly any of it. And we do have self-tying shoes. So those were invented and they do exist and you
But
can
we
buy
still
them.
don't have the little itty bitty silver dollar size pizza that we can put in the microwave and have like expand to a huge one.
Yeah, no, I don't have that. But, you know, we do have many other things that they didn't predict that are marvelous and fantastic. And so I think that in order to predict the next 20 years, you have to be a lot more practical about it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, by then cars will fly. You know, we will absolutely have hoverboards. Elon Musk will bring them to us. No, I actually think that it'll look more like communication will continue to evolve. We are this human animal species. We love to communicate. So I think we'll probably, I don't think we've seen the terminus, like the terminus point of social networking. I think we're going to see more innovation there. We're also going to see, more innovation around travel, around how to work.
Just even like decentralized workforce.
Yeah, like things like that, manufacturing, computing power, things like that will change drastically.
I mean, even the fact that 3D printing is taking so long to develop, that is something that is not new. It's been around. Additive printing has been around for a little bit now, like maybe the last decade, right?
Probably longer, but yeah.
I mean, it's something NASA created to where they could print off tools inside of space on the space station. So if you needed a tool or something to fit, to replace a part, you could just print it off remotely over a signal. And it's still not even just an everyday item that all Americans have. People do have them, but it's not like it's in your kitchen.
Really build anything super useful out of it. You can build like a toy.
Yeah. But if that can advance to the point to where you can even just have a cottage industry to where you can start a little business with your own little few 3D printers in your home in the middle of Missouri or South Dakota, then, I mean, that alone could help, change the way that our economy works.
Yeah, I think the most promising 3D printing tech I've seen is around building structures. So houses.
Yeah.
Using cement as the medium that they print with.
Which is something, I mean, would be great here in California.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, those concrete structures would be resilient against earthquake, and also allow you to expedite just building for this housing shortage that they have.
Yeah, if only we could get the government to allow this sort of thing to happen, but they won't.
But at some point, you just have to tell the government to fuck itself and just do it anyway.
And just build it and just say, come for our houses.
Yeah,
we dare you.
Cancel my house.
Yeah, cancel my house.
What are you going to do? If I build a whole neighborhood, are you going to come bulldoze it? No, get the fuck out of here. Look at what Uber did. Uber didn't ask for permission.
That's true.
Uber said, okay, you have this bureaucracy to where you have these cab medallions that are $100,000 or more or $1 million a piece, even though they're supposed to be affordable for somebody to get in. So you have these artificial barriers. You have this bureaucratic red tape that's preventing us from making a living or changing. We're just going to do it anyway.
I do wonder what would happen. Let's just say that we, theoretically, were to raise enough money, go buy a massive plot of land,
and build a skyscraper.
And build, not even just skyscrapers, but just like build housing.
Yeah.
And just put it up. And let's say we don't get all the plan permits and we just did it. What would happen?
They would just
would
try
the
to
military come in? Like,
no, they
how
wouldn't
would
be
this
able,
play out?
No, they wouldn't be able to. They would just try to fine you. They might be able to, for the developer, they might be able to maybe penalize them with some sort of sentence. But I mean, here in San Francisco, what's the threat?
They tie you up in court.
They don't prosecute anything. So why not just do whatever you want? If you want to build an addition on your home, just do it.
They don't prosecute defecating on things and stealing things and breaking into cars.
Or assaulting people.
But if you're a person who has money and you're buying a piece of land trying to build property.
Because you're the bad person.
Then you're the bad person. So
you're the one messing things up.
Yeah, because I don't see any incentive, to be honest with you, in this town to own or build anything.
Yeah.
I don't understand what's in it for anybody, other than to feel good about building housing, because there's the incentives are just definitely not aligned for anyone to want to invest their time or money into this ecosystem.
I sat in on some of these meetings here in San Francisco for the housing, and the very idea that you have people in city council telling a family that they can't add one room onto their home because it's too high and might add a little bit of shadow, and you can't have grandma come and move and stay with you and look after your little kids and be around in your kids' lives just because it might inconvenience a neighbor across the block is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's insane. That's the point to where I would say, okay, fuck you, I'm going to get a contractor and we're building it anyway. You're not going to do anything.
Well, people were terrified about the Warriors Stadium, and I don't know if you noticed, but it's fine. Like, I haven't seen a huge amount of traffic. A lot of people take the train there, walk, take Uber, but they're not, for the most part, not driving. So
what was the point of contention about worry on that?
People were really worried about crime increasing, about having that many people in such a condensed space, parking, traffic increase, everything you can think of. I'm amazed that they actually even got that approved, to be honest with you. That's pretty impressive.
Well, if it's beneficial for the city, of course they're going to approve it.
Yeah.
And what also really,
It's beneficial for the city to have housing.
yeah, well, of course it is, but not in this sort of society, to where people see landowners as evil, people see businesses as evil and causing all these problems, when they're ignoring the fact that it's government that's causing these problems.
Right.
You've got government that has created housing shortage, artificial housing shortage from rent control. You have government that has created a bureaucracy to where you can't get permitting or clearance. You have government that holds up a proposed business structure or building structure for a decade for environmental impact study. Newsflash, there's no fucking environment in San Francisco. None of this is natural.
So why is it that people think that, not to go too heavy into politics today, but that adding more government or their form of government, their flavor of government is somehow going to be better?
Exactly. Government created the problem, but this government's going to fix it.
Yeah, this time it's going to be right. Well, I think that if anything, the presidency should have taught people. It was really interesting after he won the election, Donald Trump. I got a lot of phone calls and people who messaged me wanting to learn about what being libertarian was all about. And he did a lot for the libertarian movement without really meaning to, mostly just because a lot of people said, wow, I never thought that people, I only like with people having power when it's the people I want and the people I like and the people I agree with. But as soon as they got someone into office they disagreed with, they're like, wow, the federal government shouldn't have that much power.
They're like, oh, I need to be involved in politics.
Yeah, suddenly everyone's involved in politics. Have you noticed this? Everyone's like an armchair politician. And it was interesting because like I was involved in politics and First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment stuff, and been following along with a lot of this stuff and engaged and involved. And it wasn't until like 2016 that suddenly everybody's just like suddenly cares. And then Hamilton came out, and then suddenly people are just like, the Federalist Papers,
yeah,
like
history's cool.
History's cool. Hamilton's cool.
Apparently, all you need to do is sing, the story of our founding fathers in a musical, and they're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah, and I'm
This
happy
speaks for
about
me.
that.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing, but at the same time, I think people need to realize that one of the things that the framers did get so right is that you can't just willy-nilly, these things are not, people like to call them living documents, but they're not living documents.
They're not. It's concrete.
They can be changed, but it takes a process to change them. You can't just say, wake up in the morning and decree that something gets changed. And there's a good reason for that. And, the reason is so that tyranny doesn't happen. So you don't have someone like that you strongly disagree with, like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Or if you do agree with them, you don't have them doing something that more than half the nation disagrees with on a whim.
Well,
So,
I mean, half of the nation is always going to disagree with you.
always, yes.
Period.
Especially in a two-party system.
We're
That's how
essentially
it's designed.
Yeah. We just have a bifurcated political system essentially at this point. We have smaller third-party groups, but the majority of it is going to be two parties.
Yeah. We will get into that too, like why three-party systems wouldn't necessarily work here,
But I mean, you're talking about just even the country disagreeing with one another or getting involved in politics because of all what's going on recently. I mean, the founding fathers got everything right. And for some reason, there's been this mentality, I've heard it over and over and over for the last couple of decades, of just assuming, oh, well, these are just old white guys from 200 years ago. They don't know what it's like today. Bullshit. They went through a lot more strife and trouble than any of us have gone through. And they sat down intellectually and thought about very deeply what was going to happen. And these were not decisions that happened overnight. These were discussions that were protracted over years and years and years. People thought, we declared independence in 1776. Yeah, we didn't get a constitution until 1791. That's a long time frame. It's a lot of discussions. And in that time frame, we had things like the Federalist Papers. So Federalist Papers 9 and 10, of course, or proposed and thought about the discussion of factualism, about what's going on today. And today's not anything new. This is the same thing that's been going on for past generations, past presidencies. This is not a new phenomenon. Our country's not more divided than it's ever been. That's bullshit. There have been many, many times to where it's been divided. You can't.
I think it's more obviously divided because of social media.
Yeah.
So we do have something today that we never had before, which is
very immediate.
Yeah. It's the
very
immediacy of like what you can see and how people are responding.
Because the flow of news or communication used to be much more slow. Absolutely. Yeah. Now it's immediate. And so people can get very aggravated and upset right now. And there's a lot more free time today than people had 700 or 70 years ago.
No, really?
Yeah. back when they were building, or talking about industrial revolutions, they were in the middle of one. Yeah. Post-war U.S., building these factories and building everything and building all the products and innovations and inventions for the world.
Yeah, there's a reason we have what quote-unquote school systems today. It's because we were preparing people for industrialization and war, both of those things.
And you were talking about tyranny briefly. That's why we have the Electoral College. And again, that was another genius thing to bring in and incorporate into this country from our founding fathers. And that is to keep one party or one dense population or group of people, i.e. New York or California, for deciding the life and deciding what's going on for the people and speaking on behalf of people they know nothing about in South Dakota, in Missouri, in Wyoming. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have the system we have today, and it's genius. And people want to get rid of that because they just want to support their party because for some reason they see that their party could never be the problem. It could never turn bad.
Yeah, as long as they're in charge,
everything will be perfect. Yeah. And let me ask, I know that.
But why I even think this about the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. Both parties have this wrong, but
of course.
Why do they think that it's okay and justified to make half of the country upset and unhappy half the time? Like all the time. I don't know how math. Anyway, you know what I mean. Yeah. Like it's no matter who's in charge, half the country is going to be upset.
Yeah.
I don't recall a time when Obama was president that we had this many demonstrations. Republican members were not, out protesting or lashing out against people who supported Obama. Not in the same ways that I'm seeing people lash out to anyone who supports Trump. It is such a drastic comparison, in my opinion.
Well, for sure, but I think part of that also is how do those people that support those sorts of groups generally react or behave? So just because one group doesn't outwardly protest or go out in the streets constantly doesn't mean that they're not upset with it. Mm-hmm.
And they were doing something about it.
Yeah,
so it's interesting that people don't realize that.
One, they voted.
They voted, but they also took over the judiciary.
Yeah, they did that, and they took. There's been a back and forth in the last couple of administrations to where they've gone back and forth taking over the congressional seats or the Senate seats. So it's swayed back and forth. There's been an imbalance, and it shouldn't ever really truly be balanced. Because if everything's truly balanced, then you're not going to have any progress because you'll just have homeostasis, and then everybody disagrees. Homogeneity.
Maybe people are like, please stop talking about politics. Can I tell you about, I got attacked by Bernie Sanders on Market Street on accident?
No.
Okay, so I really didn't get attacked by the real Bernie Sanders, but I was like walking down the street, and out of nowhere, like, it really caught me off guard. This guy was carrying a life-size Bernie Sanders cutout, and he, like, swung it in my face. And so I saw for a brief moment, my life flashed before my eyes, and Bernie Sanders coming at me. And I was like, what the? I yelled. I, like, screamed. I'm about to be attacked by Bernie. It took me a split second to realize it wasn't a real human being. Like, I was just like, what world am I living in that Bernie Sanders is, like, coming at me? Anyway, I thought that was really funny. And then afterwards, after I yelled, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what are you doing walking around swinging Bernie Sanders around in the street?
Don't hit me with Bernie.
Jeez.
And I mean, was he outside of an event or something
I
setting up
think
for
so.
it?
There was some kind of.
Or just some crazed person carrying around a
No, he
Bernie
didn't
Sanders.
seem crazed. He just seemed like a Bernie bro. He was just a fan, carrying around his life-size Bernie.
I carry Bernie everywhere.
Yeah, promoting
My personal Bernie.
promoting his cause. But yeah, I almost got beamed by Bernie. That was pretty funny. I've been waiting to tell you that story, by the way. Saving it up.
Great. He's one of my favorite people.
Bernie? Mm-hmm. I know you love Bernie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I love Pete Buttigieg, but let's talk about that another time.
Yeah.
Well,
one more thing, and we'll put a pin in the politics stuff.
Okay.
What I think is funny is when it comes to Bernie, the last couple years, people have been crying about old rich white men running everything, blah blah blah, and then they're like, "We love Bernie," and it's like,
well, no, he's not rich.
he's a millionaire.
Apparently, that's not rich enough.
He's got multi-millionaire.
Apparently, to some people, if you're a multimillionaire and you own multiple homes in Vermont, which I think the cost of living is lower than like here
Probably,
or New York City or whatever, apparently you're not rich. Him and Senator Warren are not rich.
Yeah, they're rich.
I like how you're like, can't process. Does not compute.
In Arkansas language, that's rich.
Yeah, and then the argument that I got, because I did like a little thing on Twitter where I asked people like what amount of money is considered rich, and some people are like, well, he's like retirement age, and that's not enough money to live off of in retirement.
Not in California, but anywhere else, yeah.
And
you definitely can live off $1 million in the middle of the country.
I really dare you to go and tell the average American that having a few $1 million and property that you own is not considered rich.
Yeah, in the middle of the country where I'm from, $1 million is a pretty nice payday.
Oh yeah,
that's
it still matters. $1 million still
that matters a lot. You're in the top. You're in the upper echelon.
Man, $100,000 to me at a certain time in my life was really rich.
$100,000 to me is still rich.
Right? It's rich.
I don't understand this mindset of a lot of people in California. It's like,
yeah, that's just out of touch with reality, is what that's all about. Yeah, that was really weird. That was a weird blip in the internet timeline. Yeah, Bernie not being rich.
And so we did have a couple other things that people were saying. Like, do we just want to go down this list or just pick
go
up
down
a
the
couple?
list.
Okay. One of the ones you really liked was from Justin. He wanted you to talk about Duran Duran's last album.
I haven't heard it yet. You were jamming it when I came over. And so Lee was doing his homework, but I didn't do mine. But to be honest with you, like, they had their moment. I'm not sure I'm going to like this album. So I'm just going to, like, pre-poo on it and just say it sucks. And then I'll go listen to it and maybe I'll change my mind.
Well, I mean, they are a James Bond band.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things.
Duran Duran's pretty darn awesome. I used to listen to them to go to sleep.
See, the thing is, A View to a Kill, the song was better than the movie. A View to Kill was also shot around here in San Francisco.
Well,
it's like one of the worst James Bond movies ever.
What were you listening to? Don't Say a Prayer for Me Now. Save it till the morning after.
That was just an autoplay.
Okay.
Yeah. It was just running through.
Prayer for me now. All right. Duran Duran. I will do my homework. I will have an opinion on that at some point.
And also typical VC. Well, I'm skipping over T Profit because I don't agree with T Profit.
No. Okay. T Profit says that
he thinks that dogs should be canceled because cats will rule the world or should rule the world.
And I agree with him. Really. I mean,
but
part of it is
cats are little sociopaths.
They are, but they also use a litter box.
They will eat you.
They use a litter box.
If you sleep too long, they'll eat you.
I think a dog would probably eat you too.
I think it would just like lay there and starve.
And cry?
Because they love you.
Maybe.
Dogs love you.
I don't know.
Cats are like, feed me, I hate you, human.
I mean, the real battle here, I think Hedgehog would win if it was Hedgehog versus, because their poos are tiny and they're cute. And
yeah, but in the middle of the country, we have things called yards. I know you don't have many of those in California, but we have things called yards, and they're fairly big.
Yeah, but around here, I see perfectly grown adult human beings following behind dogs, picking up their poop off the sidewalk.
That's still
and I'm
weird
like,
to
what
me.
kind of life is that?
No, it looks terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I'll do
one-
that for a human, for a baby human, but for a dog?
Yeah.
No.
That's one of the
Ain't
things
got
I'm
time
happy
for that.
about having not brought my dog out here, because it's just not the type of environment for a dog. Not unless I live next to a park.
Yeah, I like cats. I'm kind of with T Profit on this, but
Dogs,
all right, whatevs.
Dogs for life. Typical VC wanted us to talk about our favorite UDW finds.
Nice. Well, UDW, kind of like the show name Canceled, is just made up, and I came up with it and ran with it with Lee, and he thought it was funny too because I was making fun of something called the intellectual dark web, and
The elites.
the elites. I don't think they started off meaning to be elite, but they certainly turned elite. And I can't stand like listening or reading anything that comes out of most of that group, with the exception of, and I don't even know if she's a self-declared or nominated, or how the process even works, or if there's even a process of just probably like a self-appointed marketing ploy. But I like Claire Lehman.
Yeah.
I like Quillette, I think is how you say her publication.
Down there in
And
Australia.
I donate to it monthly, and I'm a big fan, and I support her Patreon. But I think the rest of them are just, they're full of themselves, and there's constantly this drama coming out of there. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, I'm cooler than you are. I'm smarter than you are. I should have had a Nobel Prize. No, I should have. No, they stole my ideas. My ideas are so great.
I saw all this coming 15 years ago. Yeah.
I am so clairvoyant.
Yeah.
I know Peter Thiel, so I am God.
They might share the same blood boy.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? I know Peter Thiel as well, and I am not God. So, anyway, I like to call myself UDW. It stands for Uncultivated
Dark web.
Dark Web. And uncultivated is a neat word. You should go look it up. But Lee and I are both very uncultivated.
Yeah. I'm a hillbilly from Arkansas, and she hitchhiked her way over here to California.
Yeah. So we are not educated in the intellectual sense
I haven't gotten my PhD yet.
yet.
Probably never will. But then, you know,
It's a pretty hard degree, I heard.
if I get a PhD, I might be able to be part of the intellectual dark web.
Yeah, you might be elite.
I might be elitist.
Yeah. I don't ever see you as an elitist. But in general, you'll see that's kind of a trend with me. Like, and I'm sure I'm a hypocrite. I'm sure there's something, you should call me out on it, right? Where there's some sort of thing where I'm like high and mighty about it or whatever. I'm out of touch. My friend Chris does that to me sometimes. Like, one time I was going on about this painting I bought, and he just liked to bring me down to ground zero again and remind me about my roots and where I came from. And it was a good wake-up call. And so, like, I don't like to be hoity-toity. That's why I hate that word bespoke. You know, I really don't like it when I like making fun of private clubs, you know, and I understand private clubs are necessary and people need to have them. But exclusivity to me is just a funny concept, especially artificial scarcity and stuff like that. But
It's part of the reason that I wanted to make sure that we had like Libertania starting too. So when we do have guests coming through the country, like we were talking about book guests or speaking engagements, then we can just share and disseminate that information to everybody.
yeah, otherwise
if
it's
you're
just
not-
shared within a wall between
Yeah.
30 people and the rest of the world doesn't benefit from it. So, and this podcast is kind of like that too, because Lee and I spend time chatting, and, you know, it's a way of making just random stuff that I come up with and he comes up with a little bit more scalable. And maybe people care and they want to listen. I don't know why you care and you want to listen, but hey,
Hopefully they do.
I'm excited that you
Hopefully
care.
they do, because I want those gift cards from Bass
Yeah, I
Pro.
want those Bass Pro Shop gift cards. That's what we're really doing this for, just so you guys know. We want some hunting gear and some fishing supplies.
Right? I need a new kayak.
Yeah.
Some fly fishing gear.
That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Michael Hawaii. He wanted to know about my food and cooking startup.
Oh, yeah. Can you talk about that?
That's called Elvenware. And it's going to be a platform, but I am not ready to really talk in depth about it right now. I'm just trying to
It's
take
stealth.
things step by step.
Stealthy.
Yeah. But when it comes to the time, then I'll tell you about it. You also have Stephen W. Is it Stephen or Stefan? I'm always confused.
I don't know.
It's Stefan. Is that Stefan or Stephen?
I think that's Stefan.
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 Well, he wanted to know about when you left your grandparents to live on your own.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I didn't leave my grandparents and then was on my own. So at some point, my mother convinced my grandparents that she was ready to take me back. So one of the reasons why I was with my grandparents in the first place is because my mother couldn't deal with me. And so at some point, she got this like little apartment that was a converted garage in Flagstaff. And then I moved back to live with her to go to high school. And it maybe was good for like a couple of weeks. And then the shit hit the fan. And so I was in and out of girls' homes, in and out off the street. By the time that summer of the end of that year, I was in an unfortunate situation where my mother took off to, I believe, Colorado. I don't know exactly where she went, but she left $20 on the kitchen counter and a note that said "good luck," and disappeared. So I could not pay rent and was basically homeless. And so I walked down the street and sat on a street corner and I was crying. And this woman pulled up and pulled her car over. And she was with a bandmate of mine who also played French horn. And they asked me to get in the car and they took me out to eat. And I explained what happened. And they were so nice. They took me in and were basically my foster family for the summer. And it wasn't official though. Like we couldn't get a court order or I just lived there because we didn't know where my mom was. And so they were going to try to make it official.
And that was before emancipation?
Yeah, this is before.
Okay.
They were going to try to make it official and were very unsuccessful doing that. When my mother came back, she found me and insisted that I return again. Part of this was that she didn't receive school care or government subsidies if I wasn't in her care.
Yeah.
So I had to be there.
So she wanted her check.
You want her check, yes. She was very driven by that. And so when she got back, maybe she wanted me around. I can't know the internals of my mother, but, maybe there's some piece of her that was like wanted me back, but then immediately didn't. So I moved back in with my mother and then went again through this series of being kicked out constantly, living on playgrounds, living underneath my friends' beds, roaming the streets, sleeping in stores. Eventually, I ran off and basically bought a bus ticket and I was on my way to wherever I could go. I think it was Phoenix at that time. And I got apprehended by the police while I was at the bus station. These things just kept happening over and over again. And in between there, I was homeless and hitchhiking. So I actually hitchhiked for a whole winter where I was planning on going from, basically I was homeless down in Phoenix, then hitchhiked to try to go to New York. And I ended up making it to a place called Jemez Springs, New Mexico, where I buried pipe through the winter for my stay. And they also sold mushroom spores at this place. And then everybody got food stamps and pulled their food stamps together. It was just a really weird situation.
So the pipe thing was that for some natural gas or oil? Or?
It was so the water wouldn't freeze. So
Okay.
we would take water up to the trailers, or to the trailers, I should say, and then it didn't work. But the whole theory was that if we put it beneath the creek wouldn't freeze over and the pipes would be able to still deliver water. But the pipes froze. But regardless, I got to experience digging holes and laying
pipe fitting.
And pipe fitting. I've done pipe fitting above and below now, I guess.
Nice.
I also have done it in the ceiling. So yeah, that eventually I ended up back with my mother again, and then back on the streets again after even that, and was picked up by that same police officer, Officer Pratt, and then became the equivalent of emancipated, where I became what's called a ward of the state. So it wasn't like grandparents' house, on my own. I wish that were the case, but it was a lot of bullshit in between.
Yeah. That's like a whole podcast episode.
It's a whole book,
Yeah.
actually.
A whole book.
There's a book coming.
There's a book coming out
a
for it.
whole book. Yes. And, luckily I had friends, and my friends became my family. And family is the family you choose sometimes. And so, I'm here today because I had the most amazing friends.
I think that's what a lot of people find out in life.
Yeah, they were great, and they loved me and gave me food in time of need, and gave me comfort when I needed it. So I had really fantastic friends.
Oh, right.
That's dark. We're going dark today.
No, it's all right. Well, I guess to liven it up, I know a little bit about the story. Maybe if you want to tell it, I don't know. Chris was wanting to know about your experience in Belgium.
My experience in Belgium?
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
I don't know.
Which Chris?
Well, it's not your Chris.
Oh, it's not my Chris. No. Okay.
It's just, what is your experience with Belgium?
What is my experience with Belgium? Okay, well, I have this ex-boyfriend who I was with for close to 7 years. I was on the streets with him as well. His name's Ryan. And when we met, he was homeless, but I don't think he really had to be homeless because he had this amazing mom and this amazing home life. He was more like romanticizing homeless life. Mm. And at some point, he took me to, I think I was like 15 or 16. I'm not sure about the timeline, but he took me to see his mom. And long story short, she ended up basically becoming like my mother. And eventually helped me get on my feet later on in life. And by later on in life, I mean like 18 years old. She taught me how to look people in the eye, how to mostly stand straight. And, well, she's from Belgium. And so he is a Belgian citizen, and so is she. And eventually, after 9/11, they got pretty freaked out about that situation and decided to return back to Belgium, and that's where she lives now. So that's my tie to Belgium is, my mom's there. Mm-hmm. My non-birth mom. By the way, my birth mom gets mm-hmm. really pissed off when I say that. Like, really angry. I found out about this recently. Apparently it's very rude to say that someone gave birth to you and that's somehow a special thing.
It's also rude to kick your kid out of your house.
Right?
So I don't think she has the right to be able to just say that she's upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, she did give birth to me. I am here because she did that and chose to have me, and she carried me, and that's no easy feat. And yeah. I want to honor that. And she was a fairly decent mother for a period of my life until she wasn't. And so, I think, I don't understand why she finds it so offensive, but she apparently does. And I've just found out recently because she texted me and told me that she finds it deeply troubling that I only think of her as like a host. That's not how I only think of her, but it's complicated, Mom.
Yeah.
She's probably listening to this, and it's complicated.
I mean, a lot of times it is. I mean, it's everybody's experience is a little different, and it's hard to remove yourself from the situations you were growing up in and try to think of what they were doing or what they were going through when they were that age.
Yeah.
Because especially when you're growing up, you think of everybody as being so much older, and then when you reach that age that they were at, then it's a totally different perspective.
So I had that epiphany too with my mother, and I was in my early 20s, and I remember exactly where I was when it happened. I was living on 10th Avenue in Irving here in San Francisco, and I got up to go to work, and I was brushing my teeth, and I was in the bathroom, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I realized I was the exact age that my mother was when she had me. And I was like, whoa, mind blown. Like, And I was like, could I handle having not just one kid today, but two? Because she had two at that point, me and my sister. And the answer was a hard no. Like, absolutely freaking not. And so then that was the first sort of glimpse into forgiveness for my mother, where mm-hmm. I felt maybe she was just doing the best she could, and maybe she was still kind of a kid and she was immature and she was figuring things out as she went along. And that actually really helped me for a long period of time, was realizing that people have their own ways of dealing with things. Yeah, and, I'm sorry that, saying that she is my birth mother offends her so much, but, it's how I feel and it's how I've processed everything.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. You can choose other mothers. I have lots of moms, actually. And she probably finds that offensive, too, because she thinks she's the only one. But
You're canceled.
I'm canceled. Yeah, she canceled me. She actually did cancel me. In all fairness, I tried to cancel her first. But she canceled me back.
Oh, the long line of cancellations.
Yes.
And I guess Pseudosapien wanted to know about cultural trends toward nationalism mirroring the tech trend of decentralization. We kind of talked a little bit about...
I don't have much to say about that.
We kind of touched on some of those principles.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say.
Yeah. So
maybe in the future, I don't know.
And then we'll have to circle back around, I guess, in the future about the Fourth Industrial Revolution.
Yeah, I'm interested in actually addressing that. That seems like a fun topic to talk about for a whole podcast, actually. Yeah. But I think that I need to do some reading. I don't even know where to start with that, to be honest with you. So I should, but I don't. Should we talk about methamphetamine poems?
I would love to talk about methamphetamine. My family has a close relationship with methamphetamine.
I have never really tried methamphetamines because I had a boyfriend. I've had a lot of boyfriends. This is making me sound kind of, I don't know. But I had a boyfriend that was doing meth. Mm-hmm. I was a teenager, and at some point I kissed him, and he thought it would be fun for me to have it on my mouth or something like that. And that's like the extent of my methamphetamine usage.
Well, I grew up...
That was a short-lived romance.
I grew up with ADHD, so of course
probably make you go to sleep.
All my teachers wanted me to be on meth to calm me down, but yeah.
Apparently, if you have ADHD, it makes you sleepy.
All those sorts of amphetamines, or anything that just picks you up, the uppers, they pretty much just mellow me out and make me really focused. So they don't...
I've got a couple of crack cocaine stories that I would love to share at some point. Sounds horrible. But one involves a poet that I drove around who was named Mr. Wonderful, but not Mr. Wonderful like the Shark Tank Mr. Wonderful. That's funny. I never put those two together. Anyway, his name was Mr. Wonderful, and he was a poet, and he made a living off of selling poetry on the streets. And one day he asked me to take him somewhere in my car. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. I want to help you, Mr. Wonderful. And
I need some inspiration for some poetry.
Yeah. So he had me take him to this house, and he went in the house, and he came back. And then before I knew it, he was smoking a pipe in the back of my car. And I got to smell for the first time what crack smells like.
Yeah, when I was a teenager, my first, exposure to crack cocaine was when I was working in the summers, trying to save up my money to buy my first personal laptop. I've had older computers or hand-me-downs. I wanted to buy my first PC, just my own. And so I was cleaning out rent houses, and of course, over in the bad part of the neighborhood, my boss had some property. I was cleaning out there, and then under the sink, there was a hidden little bag of crack cocaine about the size of a racquetball. It's a pretty big chunk.
That's a pretty big chunk.
Somebody left their stash.
It smells really bad when it burns. So when you heat it up or whatever.
I gave it to my coworker, and I think he traded it for a bunch of weed.
Now, the thing is, I should have been like, whatever, the guy's doing his crack cocaine in the car. Like, who cares? No stigma. But the problem is I was in Arizona, and it is a federal crime to have it in your vehicle. I probably would have been charged with possession and who knows what else. So that's the sucky part of it. I mean, he was a fine guy. I mean, he was wonderful. He was Mr. Wonderful.
How was his poetry?
It was pretty good. He sold it for like $1. I think it's not... It was better than what I'm about to read.
Was he one of the guys that traveled around with a little small typewriter and would just type you up a sheet of poetry?
No, he didn't have a typewriter. Oh, okay. He hand wrote his poems, and he would walk around and he would sell them for $1 on Mill Avenue in Tempe, Arizona.
I've seen some of those people like just traveling around with small little typewriters, giving you customized poetry in the moment.
I love love that. It's fantastic.
It's very bespoke.
Yes, very bespoke. Yes, very bespoke. I'm about to read a very bespoke poem.
Awesome.
Should I tell another crack story, or should I do it after the poem?
Well, I mean, this whole theme, I think, is going to be meth related. So let's just go with a poem.
All right, I'm going to go with the poem.
What's the title of your poem?
The poem is The Need for Speed.
All right. Very Top
The
Gun-ish.
Need for Speed. And I might not be able to read this perfectly because, so just some history behind this poem. I buy handwritten poems and letters from prison inmates and all walks of life off of eBay. And sometimes, you find a gem like this one. So this is, I can only assume someone who is serving time for meth. Which is sad. I want to actually say that I don't know how you feel, Lee, about this sort of thing, but I think that, the war on drugs and locking people up for drug use is ridiculous. I also think it's a form of racial profiling. But
I've been involved with multiple sides of it through family issues, or like, for example, I was talking about meth in my family. So my cousin actually was a meth cooker, and he loves meth so much that he has the chemical formula tattooed on his arm. He just recently.
What did he think of the show Breaking Bad?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really talk to him that much, to be honest. The last time he tried to call me, I blocked his phone. But he just recently got out of prison for meth-related charges again, except for while he was tweaking out, he broke a bottle and cut up some lady's face.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so he definitely deserved to go to prison for that one.
That sort of stuff, yeah. I mean, if you're going to do violent crimes and things like that while under the influence, you are responsible for your behavior.
Yeah.
You can't blame it on being altered by a drug you chose to take. But I think that if you're not harming anyone and you're doing your drugs, and I don't see what the harm is, to be honest with you, other than like trying to get them on a healthier path.
I'm kind of, of course, me being libertarian, I'm kind of on the fence about it, just from having worked in the penitentiary system back in Arkansas, and then also coming out here to San Francisco and seeing what that sort of dystopian environment is when you do have no law enforcement. Because I live in the not so great part of the city, and I see it constantly. And it's not something that I think is healthy for society.
Yeah, do you think it's our lack of, well, that's probably another topic for another time, our lack of law enforcement, or the fact that people can get away with it here and so they're drawn here, or it's easier to do it here?
I think it's compounded by the fact that they know there's no repercussions and no punishment.
Interesting. I will put a pin in that for another time, because I think we could do a whole thing about, like incarceration and drug reform. And I don't want to make like light of addiction, and I know addiction is a real thing, but you can't help but be entertained by these poems. So it is what it is. If you can't find this funny, I can't help you. Sorry. The Need for Speed, poem. It's written in all caps, poem. We're sick of being tired. We all want to get wired. We just want to tweak and stay up for a week. The lights are always on. We're constantly awake. We go to people's houses and we see what we can take. We scrub our carpets with a brush, our floors with a rag. Our carpets are clean. We clean our houses for hours and go chase the bag. We're paranoid and skitsy, but not afraid of death. Scandalous and dishonest, but loyal to our meth. At times we are confused. We can't seem to understand what happened to our lives and why we are outlaws of the land. At times we act so crazy, people think we are insane. Irrational thoughts are frequently running through our brain. What a high it is for those of us who deal, slinging all of the cutter so we can do the real. We came up fast, make money by the score. Everybody's our friend. We're surrounded by bag whores. We all end up in prison wondering how this hole was dug. We blame it on society because we're loyal to our drug. While in prison, we build our bodies and improve our stature. We get out on parole and again go manufacture. We don't care about our health. We're not scared about going back. We don't care about our lives because we are loyal to the sack. So here I sit in prison, unable to get high. I take it like a man. There's no time for me to cry. Soon I'll be back out and tempted by the meth. I'll have to be much stronger or be loyal to my death.
So it sounds like he's really a proponent of productivity.
Yeah, and being loyal.
And clean floors.
Yeah, and clean floors. You could lick his floors. Or she.
Yeah.
I can't tell if this is a she or he. It's not signed. There are no names.
Cleanliness is next to godliness. So.
Yeah, the handwriting is impeccable. They get an A+ for handwriting. Mm-hmm. It's very good penmanship.
Not really sure about the rhyme scheme, though.
So I think that they, did well in school, probably. And compared to some of the other poems I have here, I mean, there's some pretty good words in here. Like, what was that word that was in here? Where'd it go? It'll come to me. Not manufacturing.
Well, you do have some doozies of poems there in that pile.
Oh, I do have some doozies. I'm not sure that our audience can handle one of them. I'm gonna ask our audience if they can handle one. So I actually have some prison love poems, and some of them are X-rated. So it's very difficult for me to even read them without crying.
Well, you know what? If we were part of the intellectual dark web, we probably wouldn't be able to do that. But
no,
the good thing is we're uncultivated.
The good news is I am not an intellectual. So this one is a lot more tame. It's really sweet, actually. A Valentine thought, thou not a lot, for I don't want to scare you away. But I do want to say that in some special sort of way, I want you to be close to my heart. So my dear friend, my heart, I do send my Valentine gift from me to you. I wish I were there, but I'm caged like a bear, who's temporarily assigned to the zoo. I really love that, by the way. Please don't be sad, for I am not mad. For without this, I would not have found you. So you see, all is fine. If you will be mine, then my Valentine wish has come true. It's almost Valentine's Day, and I think that's a good one.
But was that one of the high school ones? Or
no, this is a prison one.
That's a prison one?
Yeah, prison.
So where did your interest in attaining all of these random letters from different backgrounds of people come from? What does it serve? Like for you?
People ask me this all the time, where my weird stuff comes from.
Well, it's not necessarily weird. It's like, are you trying to draw insight from different people's perspective, or are you just
I think I'm secretly a voyeur, and I just want to peer into someone else's life and read about it. I'm also really fascinated by the fact that these things ended up on the internet for sale. Mm-hmm. Like that I can go on eBay and buy a lot of these letters. And I don't know. Are these
just letters that people are throwing away and then they're moving? Or?
I have no idea. There's no backstory to it. They're sold to you in a manila envelope chocked full of letters and with no explanation.
I had zero idea that people sold letters. I just thought they were like me and they threw them away.
I thought so too. So I think maybe so here's the running theories, hypotheses that I have right now, which is maybe they're storage units that got cleared out. Maybe
so.
Maybe they're thrown out on the street. Maybe there is a whole market where people are saying, send me, maybe I'm actually secretly funding a meth addiction. I don't know. But I did notice that one of the sellers has multiple lots. Mm-hmm. I didn't reach out to them because I'm actually not sure I want people who are in prison tied to me in this way. I'm not really sure how to handle this yet.
Yeah.
But I was curious. I thought about reaching out to the seller, asking how they got it, and then I thought I might not want to know the answer.
But I mean, they might also just be people trying to find just great finds too, kind of like these old diaries from the early 1800s.
Yeah, the diaries from the 1800s are fantastic.
So if they're finding and going around looking for that sort of thing, they might just hope that they're going to stumble upon something from somebody notable. Maybe. Because, I mean, sometimes you'll read in a newspaper and somebody finds some letter from the 1700s or 1800s of some founding father or business leader or whatever.
Yeah.
So you never know. Or discover in a big lot of just junk that they find in a storage bin, they might just find a piece of artwork that was lost.
So I was thinking about starting a mailing list where I scan some of these and then, type them up. And because some of them are quite beautiful. And a lot of them are desperate because they paint a picture of this desperate loneliness that you face in prison. The prison letters really get to me a lot. Maybe not let's do this. I don't think I can read that yet. Yeah, let's see if our audience can actually handle
That one's very romantic.
pornography. We'll cross that bridge later. That really might get us canceled for sure. But I didn't write it. What's really funny is when I first showed it to Lee before we were recording, he's like, "Wow, this is one of your journal entries and your poems. Wow, okay." I'm like, no, that is not mine.
Well, you never know. I didn't know if it's something from your teenage years, trying to express yourself.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. The handwriting does look a little like mine.
Never know.
Yeah, I guess you never know. Should we read another one?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, I'm kind of interested. So you have 3 letters from somebody that obviously worked in an auto shop.
Yeah, America, or sometimes prisons they get donations of paper, so it could just be a donated paper. But apparently, it's something called American Brake Supply.
Yeah. So some love letters from a brake supply person.
Yes. So I will read love letters. This one's titled "Forgive Me," and then it says "Not me," so I'm not sure. Forgive me, not me.
But not forget me not.
Yeah, but not forgive me not. And it says, I think that this might be though, but it's spelled thou. So I'm just going to say though. Though I have covered many a tears to roll down your cheek. Caused. Though I have, sorry about this. Like sometimes it's really hard to read these. Mm-hmm. Though I have caused many tears to roll down your cheek and left your heart broken and made our love weak, I, retaliating and rebelled, causing anger and pain, always finding something on which I'd blame, instead of rewarding you with satin and lace, I raised up my hand, slapping your face.
Wow, that's not so great.
Yeah, it's really not good at all.
It's like I didn't buy you some nice lingerie, I just hit you.
Okay, well, apparently he has an epiphany, though, because he also gives some love advice.
Oh.
Let's read the next poem, and then I will go through his... I'm going to assume this is a hymn. There's no gender, but... women can slap other men as well, so... Baby, I'm sorry from my heart and my soul. Now down my cheeks the tears do roll. Misery and loneliness my company now here, and losing you forever is what I most fear. I pray you feel with sincerity in the words this poem. I ask you to forgive me and let me come home.
That must have been after he hit her.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that's after he hit her.
He's like, I really should have gone with the lingerie.
Yeah, I really should have gotten that lace.
Sounds
but
terrible.
Love advice from a batterer.
Mm-hmm.
That you call a person who hits someone else a batterer, right?
Yeah, domestic battery.
So, domestic battery prison inmate, here are some love advice. To love a woman, a man must know it takes more than water to make a flower grow. Constant attention is needed, never left to feel the pain of being alone, complimenting her beauty and she will bloom and grow. Noticing everything about her, from her hair to her toes. Always noticing any change, for instance, her clothes. Occasional candy, cards, a long stem rose. She must feel secure from all danger. How about you don't hit her?
Yeah, I was about to say, like, all danger, like you slapping her in the face.
Yeah, about knowing her man will take care of her. I think that indicates this is a man. She should have no doubt masculine yet sensual, firm with soft touch, never demanding or treating her mean, instead treating a woman as though she were a queen. In return, a woman will make a man feel as though he were a king. Never demanding or expecting too much, able to read her feelings by the look on her face, comforting her fully with just an embrace, careful not to smother her. Yeah, please don't smother her while giving her space.
He probably wasn't smothering her with love.
No. Trusting her fully in all that she does, reassuring her doubt, if ever there was, letting her feel your need of her love while filling her with the love that she needs.
So his advice is to make sure to come on her toes?
Yes.
'Cause that's what women want. They're like, I want you to pay attention to my toes.
Pay attention to my toes. I got a new pedicure. I got like little bees painted on them.
Super important.
You better notice.
And don't hit me.
And don't hit me. I want you long stem rose, and please don't hit me. And don't smother me, bro.
Wow, I'm not really sure I could take much advice from that gentleman.
Yeah, I think I have some more from him in this bag, but we'll skip those for today. But I think next time I will read some older. These are contemporary, so I think I might read some older ones. You know, like I have soldier letters.
Really?
Yeah, where they write back to their loved ones.
From like World War I, II, or
Both.
nice.
Yeah, World War I and World War II letters.
You might
This
be-
one is about marijuana.
Oh.
So, a lot of drugs, love letters.
So today's the drug.
Today is the
letter day.
drug episode, yes. So, I began to unfold what I've been told, smoking herb till I'm gray and old. Rolling it up, who gives a fuck? Mary has me stuck. Going nuts, it's a must, a hobby that will never rust. Vanish into dust with a grape coat made just for us. Don't provoke, if you have to then choke, but watch me float with my lungs all full of smoke. What
So-
is a grape coat?
I have no idea.
Is that something we have to look that up on Urban Dictionary?
Maybe so. So you, I
We're
think
saving this one for another day. Let's do this.
the love letter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. But I think a couple weeks ago you had a dream. A few weeks ago you had a dream about like doing every drug.
Oh
on planet
yeah,
Earth.
I did every drug
Were you?
imaginable.
Was that after reading all these fantastic letters?
No, it was before. It was absolutely before. But no, I had a dream where like I took all the drugs, and I felt them all too. It was really weird. Like I've never done heroin, but like I have this imagination, or I imagine what heroin might feel like based off of descriptions, and so I totally did heroin in my dream. It was like very calming. It's okay. I had a dream the other night before last, where I got attacked by butterflies, and a swarm of butterflies covered my eyes. And they're beautiful, and they feel really weird.
It's just like tingly, like with
Yeah, like
thousands of
imagine their little legs like crawling all over your face, and for whatever reason, they were orchestrating a very planned sort of like thing where they were preventing me from seeing. But I was looking from the outside towards me, from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And there's beautiful like monarch butterflies were just like covering my eyes. So
What does that have to deal with?
who knows? My dreams are very, very strange. They're
Wait.
very, very strange. I wish that my day thoughts, like my waking thoughts, were as cool as my dream thoughts. Like, I don't know where this stuff comes from. Like, no idea.
So I'm wondering if you were just generally a lot of times when you have dreams, then something triggered that sort of thought that you carry into your dream. Something, in the days leading up to it. So I'm just curious what set you off to have a dream just about
Butterflies?
like every drug.
Oh,
Like going on a bender.
I don't know, man. But I went on a massive bender. Yeah.
And then attacked by butterflies.
Yeah. When I had my stroke, I had some crazy dreams. Those were really crazy. Probably the craziest I've ever had in my life. So, all I can say is that we release some really interesting chemicals while we're sleeping, and we naturally... The cool thing about doing all the drugs in my dream is it taught me... It's kind of like one of those duh moments. Like, you can actually fabricate with your own mind the perception of being high. Because I was really high in my dreams. Like, really, for real. So, it was about as real as you could be. It was just a simulation. So,
I think
pretty
there's some.
interesting.
I think there's some companies around here too that are using technology to try to synthesize that and try to understand being inhibited by drugs.
yeah.
So I think they are using like VR to try to create worlds or sensations or things to kind of have that sort of impact or release, or maybe even inspiration. Because I mean, sometimes if you look back to a lot of writers in U.S. history or poets, a lot of them were substance abusers. And for some reason, those substances apparently help trigger some sort of creativity. So might there be some sort of benefit that you could trigger through a simulation?
Maybe. I think it would give you the visual effects that you get from. I used to be a drug abuser, just full disclosure. I'm not an addict, but an abuser. So when I was a teenager, I tried a lot of things and did a lot of things. And I'm not ashamed of it. You know, I'm not going to stigmatize it. Mm-hmm. But I think that it's very difficult to describe without doing it. And I'm making some assumptions about you. Like maybe you have not tried any drugs. Doesn't seem like it.
No, just like weed when I was younger, and then when I moved out here for school.
Yeah. So in some senses, like there's a visual component, but there's also a heavy mental component that I think would be very difficult to stimulate your brain into creating visually, just with visuals. Mm-hmm. So like VR alone probably wouldn't give it to you. I think like if you could actually modify the brain directly, either through, I mean, one of my friends was telling me that we have the ability to trick the human brain into believing we have a phantom limb, so we could have like a third limb, mm-hmm. and you could actually think you have a third limb.
Well, I mean, and you can create phantom pain, phantom sensation.
Sensation.
So if you see like a prosthetic hand in front of you, and then somebody is also, if the hand's here, and then also somebody's creating sensation on your actual hand, then what you're seeing with your brain, you associate, oh, well, that's my hand. So then if they do studies like this, and then if somebody attacks that hand or stabs it or hits it with a hammer, then your brain synthesizes that you felt pain because you saw those visual triggers and stimuli.
Yeah, so I don't know why I didn't think about this, but like, obviously drugs are also chemicals that alter your serotonin and various like chemical makeup in your brain that cause you to see things that don't exist or think extraordinary thoughts and all of those sorts of things that you could simulate it without any drug whatsoever. Yeah. And that was just kind of the cool thing to wake up and think about. Mm-hmm. I haven't done drugs since I became an adult basically. So I got this all out of my system luckily when I was younger.
Before you came to the San Francisco area or like a little bit after? Or?
I think I smoked weed like a couple times and drank some alcohol and maybe did ecstasy like once. That's it. So, but when I was a teenager, I partied. I went to raves and I did a lot of things.
Yeah, I've kind of stayed away from that whole thing. One, because of family issues, and two, I just don't have a lot of trust in anybody. It's hard for me to trust people, and I'm not going to buy some substance that somebody made in the trailer. Or,
in all fairness, I shouldn't have trusted. I'm too trusting.
Yeah, so like
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, so I would never just buy something off of somebody in a park.
Well, I did, and I do not recommend it. I highly advise
because
that
I have to
not
imagine,
do that.
Because I have to imagine that it's like my cousin that made it, and I'm like, no.
Oh yeah, like I have bought some very questionable things, and who knows what I actually ingested and put into my body. Luckily, if we legalize these things and we help people buy pure substances, either pharmaceutical grade from the pharmacy, or there's a organization, I don't even know if they're still around, called Dance Safe, that used to test drugs on the spot at parties to make sure you're actually getting what you paid for and not something horrendous.
Yeah, but then we have this drug trade to where you get stuff from South America, Central America, Mexico that is laced for some reason with fentanyl.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Which is scary, 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 super dangerous.
It's really dangerous. When I was in the hospital with my stroke, they gave me fentanyl. And I didn't have a choice in the matter at the time. But what really struck me was people rushing to my bedside because I'd stopped breathing.
Yeah, it's an anesthetic, just like
I stopped breathing.
Yeah, it brings you to the edge of life.
Yeah, and I didn't even notice. Like, it was like I just sort of drifted off, and then suddenly people were shaking me, and then they said we can't give her any more fentanyl, and I was like, oh, you were giving me fentanyl? I was like, wow, I didn't know. Okay. But luckily I was hooked up to machines that could monitor my breathing and my oxygen. But had I not been, I probably just would have, slipped off and died. So I don't know why they even administer it, to be honest with you, as a pain killer.
I don't get it. I mean, I even when I was, I guess the mid 2000s, when I was in undergrad, I was seeing just around campus, we'd have these clinics on campus, right, where you'd have nurse practitioners or doctors that work on site for students, right, to give them health care. You go in there with a tummy ache, or if you're a woman, you say you have cramps from, your cycle, they'll give you like Percocet. Mm-hmm. It's like, you don't need narcotics for Percocet. There are or for general basic pains. There are plenty of options. You're just creating an environment to where you're medicated for no reason.
Oh yeah, Kaiser used to like just hand me bottles of Vicodin, and it's like I just have a backache, yo. I don't need Vicodin.
When I dislocated my knee, they gave me a whole big fat bottle of narcotics. I took maybe 2 of them. I'm like, okay, I can use a leaf.
Yeah.
I just dealt with the pain. I wasn't going to take all that stuff because it just zones you out and makes you feel terrible.
It kind of reminds me of my grandma. So my grandma was addicted to drugs on her deathbed. So it was really sad because I came to see her and she was begging for her morphine shot. Mm-hmm. And she kept ringing the buzzer asking for her morphine shot. She was in a nursing home. And she had an infection and there was like all sorts of things going wrong. But she did look at me and she had this realization. She said, I used to condemn people that use drugs and that were addicts. Mm. And she said, now look at me. I'm addicted to morphine. She knew it. She knew that like she didn't necessarily need it. She just kept pushing the button so that she could get any amount of morphine in her system. So people in the hospital, even in nursing homes, become drug addicts because of pain management.
Doctors have gotten so easy to overprescribe this stuff, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
My background growing up, I grew up in a medical family, and you would know which doctors overprescribe or just hand people out pills like candy. And I don't understand why the government doesn't control it more. It's very obvious. Again, you are just prescribing 100 pills a month or something to people that don't really need it. And there are drugs like OxyContin. OxyContin is something that used to be prescribed for people that were terminal with cancer, that were dying, just to relieve their pain. That's what you prescribed OxyContin for. Or somebody that was literally in a car wreck and like crushed, just unbearable pain. That's what you prescribe OxyContin for. And now people are handing out OxyContin for nothing. You got a boo-boo in your leg. You got a sprained ankle. Here's some OxyContin.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
One of the things that was also weird when I was in the hospital, because you have these ports basically put in your arms. I had one in each arm. And so all of the drugs they give you, I could swallow pills. And for whatever reason, they wouldn't let me. Mm-hmm. And so they were constantly injecting stuff into me.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have a stroke, then did they give you like water thickeners too as well?
Blood thinners, but not water thickeners.
Okay, a lot of times they'll give people water thickeners because they're worried that people are going to choke after a stroke.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they'll put a solution into water. It kind of makes it almost jellified to where, it's not something that you're going to aspirate and get into your lungs and choke. So you're kind of a choking hazard after you have a stroke.
Huh. Well, they let me have food. It was just really weird because they wouldn't let me swallow a pill. So interestingly, they came and I was joking about it, but they were like giving me Benadryl and I was mainlining Benadryl through a port. And I was just like, I'm shooting up Benadryl. Like, that's fucked up. So my pain management was a cocktail. They call it a cocktail. And it was Compazine, which is it's an anti-nausea thing. And then Benadryl and then Tylenol. And so it's like those 3 things combined and then they would shoot me up with it. But like, it was a horrible feeling. It got to the point where I was just like, I can't handle it anymore. Like, stop giving it to me.
No. I think the only thing that I've ever had shot intravenous like that was Phenergan. And
what is that?
Phenergan is it's a pseudo opioid. It's not really an opioid. It's synthetic.
It sounds like a Hobbit.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
It is something that they give to people that are very, very nauseous or whatever, but it also will knock you out. So it was after a car wreck. I had some damage to my arm and stuff, and me being an honorary kid, I'm like, hey, it's not that bad. I've hurt myself tons of times. Just get some sponges, clean it up, sew it up, and let me leave. They kept me there for like 10 hours. And so I was becoming such a problem that they just shot me up with Finnegan to knock me out.
They're like, shut up.
Yeah, and they're like, all right, this kid's so annoying. His dad's a doctor and he's a know-it-all. He's just an asshole. Just knock him out. I was like, I know what your people are doing. It's like, I don't need to be here. Just, I'll clean it up myself. I just want to leave. That's basically what I was acting like. And so that was the first sensation that I had to where I could actually feel the drug inching up my arm. And
It's an awful feeling.
It was a burning, like acid sort of sensation.
Have you ever had a CT scan?
It's just like crawling up your arm. And then once it gets to the shoulder, it disappears. It goes away.
Yeah, it's weird. Have you ever had a CT scan with contrast? Mm-mm. Oh, man. Just wait. Hopefully you don't have to have one. But it feels like you're urinating on yourself. They warn you beforehand. They're like, this stuff is going to enter your veins, and it's going to feel really warm, and then you're going to feel like you pissed your pants. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wow, it feels like I'm peeing my pants. It's totally right. But you're not. It's a very strange thing. Things intravenously are very strange. Anyway, enough of drugs. I've got another poem about speed, but I think I've had enough. Mm-hmm. And more love poems, but I'll try to collect some for the next podcast that I think are gems.
So with all these letters, like, what do you think that you've learned, or like, what are some things that come to mind that you've picked out?
I've learned that inmates are very lonely. They would love conjugal visits.
Uh-huh. That's a given.
They need love in their life, and we don't allow them to have it. So we deprive them of the one thing that would probably make them better people.
It's part of their punishment.
Yeah, it's part of their punishment, which I'm against. Like, I actually think they should have love.
Well, I mean, again, when you're talking about wards of the state, so once you become an inmate, you are a ward of the state. They are your parents, essentially. They are there for your care to make sure you don't die and et cetera. So you can't allow them to have kids while they are technically your legal kids. You know,
right?
So it's more dependency. It's not a good situation for children. So of course they're not going to.
Oh yeah, it's totally not a good situation for children. But it seems like
conjugal visits.
Yeah, it seems like there's ways to get it. Anyway, I'm not going to get technical, but it seems like there's things you could do.
Yeah, well, you can send them. You can send them magazines.
They can't even cuddle.
You can send them. Well, sometimes they do cuddle. They do cuddle in prison.
Sometimes they don't though. It sounds like some of these people go without touch for like long periods of time.
They do. They do.
Yeah. And I think that that's just really sad. Mm-hmm. So I've learned about that. I've also learned that...
and like the worst times of the year, of course, are holiday seasons.
Yeah.
That's when I would have to, when I was on the job, make sure that some people were monitored more heavily because they had a propensity, it seemed, for self-harm.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that these people that are in prison, they have a not so great friend network that enables them. So some of the letters I've seen sent to them are encouraging this sort of behavior. Mm. And then I see that they are trying to figure out who they are. A lot of them get older and you see the letters as they mature. Some of them are really young when they get into the prison system. And so you see them questioning whether or not that these people should be in their lives. And a lot of them also take to God. So I've seen a lot of like religious discoveries where, and I don't blame them. I'm not a religious person by any means, but, it gives them some sense of purpose. And so I found lots and lots and lots from across multiple inmates, ramblings from the Bible written down over and over and over and over and over again. Mm. And all I can think that's about is like, trying to grasp onto something to give them hope.
Some sort of affirmation.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what else have I discovered? So that's for prison stuff. For the non-prison stuff, mostly a lot of teenage angst. The teenage stuff, like there's these, I don't know if you guys ever wrote letters in class, but, there's a special way of folding them when you pass them in class. And so a bunch of them are still folded that way. Which I find pretty precious.
I used to fold mine like little footballs.
little footballs. Like
little
this one says
like
to
triangular paper footballs.
my babe, to my babe. So I can only imagine this was snuck around class and then sent over to the boyfriend. And I have stacks and stacks of letters between the two of these folks, and I don't know what happened with him, but he clearly went to jail. But it didn't start out in jail. I think they started out either in community college or high school. What else? The prisoner stuff, sad. The war stuff is really sad. Mostly they go off to fight war, and they're writing back to someone they've left behind. And in some cases, they have children. And so, it's they don't know if they'll ever see them again. And so it's a lot like prison, actually, in that regard. And then there's really weird stuff, like, I have a bunch of legal documents that are like lumped in with this stuff, like court records, legal documents.
A lot of times convicts will work on their legal cases while they're in there and try to get appeals. And so a lot of times they do their own legal work. So they'll go to the prison library, and every prison library has just a whole wall of legal books. And so when they don't have counsel, then they do their own research. And then when they can get a counsel, then they will say, I pulled these and these and these related to this sort of thing. So they try to do their homework while they're there.
Yeah, I'm trying to decipher what happened to an inmate that I found who I can't figure out if he's alive or dead. Because while he was incarcerated, so he had 2 priors and then was picked up for being in a vehicle with a girlfriend at the time who was found to have methamphetamines on her person in her lap. It was not distribution size. It was, consumable size.
Yeah.
And he had a concealed knife. I guess the handle was sticking out of the pocket, but the rest of the blade was inside of the pocket. And according to the police report that I saw, the police officer said that, he complied with everything. He told them what was in his pockets. He claimed, the police report says that he claimed that the drugs were his.
Yeah.
Later on, it becomes clear that it was the girlfriend's drugs, and they weren't his, potentially. You can't really tell based off of what I'm seeing, but you don't know whose drugs were what. But
well, and California has weird laws regarding to knives. So a lot of their laws are related to like fixed blade knives versus pocket folding knives. Pocket folding knives can be concealed in a pocket because they're intended to be, but they have to be under a certain blade length.
Yeah, I think this was a fixed blade.
And if it's a fixed blade, then it can't be concealed. It can be worn on the person, publicly displayed.
So I didn't know this, so I think this is a public service announcement, to be honest with you, because turns out you can serve a long period in prison for having a concealed blade. He said that in a lot of the testimony that I read that he bought it at like a normal hunting store, like a Bass Pro Shop type place. And so this really hit me hard because this is a person, from all that I've read, is a grandfather, is a father, has a drug addiction problem.
Because I think some of these letters, he was essentially, from what I was getting, probably around 50.
55,
Yeah.
Probably 50, 55. And he has hepatitis. So he tested positive for hepatitis when he was in prison. And apparently his liver, like really bad things started happening to his liver, and then his feet and legs started swelling up, and he got to the point where he could barely walk. And so there's a stack of papers, and I'm not kidding you, it's like almost an inch thick of complaints where he's complaining about the pain that he's in and he's not able to get any help. And then there was a time where he was attacked while he was in prison and then had a few bones broken. But because they kept saying that his bones weren't broken and nothing happened, he ended up getting this like horrendous infection and then had to have surgery. So I don't know, just like reading through that has made me just incredibly sad about the prison quote unquote system. Because it's not clear that he belonged in prison at all for this third offense. I don't know what he did the previous 2 times.
Was that under the 3-strike?
Yes, it was under the 3-strike rule. Yeah, which was what, Clinton? Who did that?
Well, I don't think that was a federal thing, was it?
I think it's a federal thing.
I think a lot of states picked that up to be tough on crime, and California was one of those, or if not, like the case example state for that.
Yeah, I thought it was federal, but I could be wrong. But anyway, that's basically what happened to him. And so I can't figure out if he's still in prison, free, or died. I've been searching obituaries. I've been searching for social media profiles. My goal is to return all of these letters and these documents to a family member.
Yeah.
And to find someone who cares. Because I think that someone got a hold of these documents, but maybe he passed and some prison person just handed it to somebody and released it to them and they just didn't care about it. And they sold it or gave it away or dropped it off in the trash. Like, I don't know how these things came to be in my possession, but I do know that there's got to be someone, based on the letters that I've read. He had a lot of family who cared about him, and people who constantly gave money for his account. So he was donated money a lot.
For like commissary.
Yeah, exactly. And so hopefully I can find the family. And if you're listening to this and you know anything, like if you're part of Innocence Project or you know like what I can do, with these letters, I would love to get, some of them are entertaining and fun to read, but some of them I actually would like to get back to the family because I think that they wrote them for a reason, and it's just really sad that they're falling into my hands.
Yeah, some people get caught up in the system. When I was a correctional officer, there was this one gentleman that was kind of a tragic case. He largely became nonverbal. He had been in prison for quite a long time. And he was locked up and made an example of in, I think, the 1970s or early 80s. When he was around maybe 18. And he had stolen a 6-pack of beer from like a convenience store.
Unforgivable.
And the guy was in prison when I was there in 2001.
Wow.
So over like 23 years or over 20 years.
It's messed up.
For stealing some beer when he was like 18.
Yeah, and how many kids do you know have done the sort of stuff like that and gotten away with it?
Yeah. And so
gotten a free pass.
So the judge made a quote unquote example of him. Being tough on crime and theft. So just a dude locked up for way too long for something that really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that sticks out in my mind is he would play chess with people. And this was in an area of the prison called administrative segregation, which is 23-hour lockup. He was there permanently. He didn't live in the barracks, and he only got to see the sky 1 hour a day, but he didn't even go outside for that. So he was in there 24/7, never left. And we would serve them trays of food every single day. And he would use his slices of bread to soften up in water and then shape chess pieces out of them. Oh. So he would tear the crust off the bread for the dark pieces and save those up to make dark colored chess pieces. And then he would use the white of the bread to make the white side. And so most prison inmates they would get little pieces of paper, and then they would, what's called kiting. They would, kind of like high school letters, they would make little footballs, right? Or they would stick them to a string. They'd get a string and pull it off their clothes, and then they'd throw it out to a cellmate to go below, or they would try to throw it way down the cell block to try to get it in. If it doesn't work, then they would reel it in, and they would try again. So most of them would play chess either by calling out or writing on a piece of paper their chess moves. But this guy, he would just play with chess pieces that he made out of bread.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's
Oh my
all
gosh.
he did. And he wouldn't talk. So it was a pretty terrible situation.
That's horrible. Yeah.
And that's why I became a libertarian.
That's, wow.
Yeah. Prison turned me into a libertarian because, I saw exactly what government can and will do to people. And that sort of thing is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. It's,
There are many people there justifiably, for sure. But that sort of situation, it's just not justifiable.
it's also a new form of slavery. So, the other thing is that they do work. Some that it's voluntary, but some of it they're compelled to do work. In certain states, it depends on the state.
In Arkansas, you're compelled, I believe, for the first 60 days or maybe 90 days, you are compelled to, once you're ingested in the system, you're brought in, you have to go work the fields. So
That's slavery.
no, not really.
That's modern day slavery. Compelling someone to do forced labor. That's especially if they're in there for a charge that's like questionable to begin with.
Well,
Like, that's pretty fucked up.
Well, where I worked, it was a 27,000 acre plantation. And so there were 2 prisons on it, and they would grow all the crops to feed all the convicts, like across the state. So they had vegetable sections, they had fruit sections where they grew like watermelon and cantaloupe, and then they had large cotton that they would actually make their uniforms out of, and the officers' uniforms. So everything for the prison institution was grown on that plantation and similar plantations across the state. So essentially, they're raising their own food. So it's not really slavery. They're cooking or raising their own food, harvesting their own crops.
I mean, it's a nice mental image. I'll have to think about that one, but my gut feeling is that it's not okay.
It's very sustainable.
Yeah. I know it's single origin, organic, sustainable, and all sorts of feel good shit, but like, I mean, granted, it's not making license plates.
Well,
and
see,
signs.
I think the differentiation for me is they're not being used for private enterprise. So I know a lot of Western states, I think maybe in Nevada or something, there have been instances to where convicts were used for running call centers or
they still
doing
are.
work like that.
I think Mayor Bloomberg just got caught with this.
Yeah,
recently.
so we didn't do that in Arkansas. Arkansas, they had a printing press that printed all of the legal books for the legislature. So they would print off state books for the legal system or state organizations. They made all the uniforms for the officers and the convicts. They made all of their own stuff. They didn't make license plates. They contract that out. So all of the stuff that they make in Arkansas is just made for the system. So they're not. It's not private enterprise. They're not making money off of anybody.
I'll ponder this one because the thing that bothers me is like in Arizona, they had something called the chain gang, and it'd be hot as hell outside, like 120 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which, like Joseph Arpaio.
Yeah, Arpaio, he's the worst. And he would have these people out there with their pink underwear and their black and white stripe outfits, chained together, marching down the freeway, picking up trash in inhumane conditions. And a lot of these people were like this guy that I'm reading about who possessed some methamphetamines. Like, it's I have very, very hard feelings about. I feel like it's a slippery slope, and if you can incarcerate people for whatever, especially for petty drug crimes, things like stealing beer.
Yeah.
Do they deserve? My answer is no, but to be in prison in the first place, and 2, having to do labor against their will, that maybe they even disagree with. So,
I think there's a fine line. I mean, if you're breaking the law and you're violating or stealing from other people or violating their rights, their freedoms, i.e. assaulting somebody, whatever, breaking into their home, I think there does need to be some penalty for it. I don't think people just need fines and say, okay, here's a fine, go about your day. Or like they do in San Francisco, to where you can sell fentanyl and get arrested for it and be out in like an hour and walking back on the street. I think there's something broken about that, because those people are victimizing and endangering lives. So I don't know. We can have a prison episode sometime.
Okay.
I guess.
Prison episode in the
Prison
future.
and judicial system.
So I think we'll probably close.
I think
soon.
So. We've
How long did we go this time?
over 2 hours.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I
if
think
you listen this long,
we can rack
I'm
it up.
really impressed.
You must really like us.
Yeah, you really like us, and I really like you, because we're gonna get that Bass Pro Shop.
Yeah, we need
Gift
those
certificate.
gift certificates.
But
And
if you listen
camping
this
gear.
far,
Well, they could give you so much stuff for your RV.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
You could
totally.
have a hell of an RV trip.
outfit my RV. That'd be fantastic. We can do the podcast from the road.
There you go.
So if you listen this far, I probably should have said this at the beginning of the podcast, so I will do it the next podcast as well. I want to thank my friend YT Cracker. I think he goes by the real YT Cracker on
I think it's
Twitter.
the real YT Cracker on Twitter.
Yeah, and he created all the music that we use on the podcast, and I'm a big fan of his, and he's very talented. The lyrics, you should give them a good listen. They're very nerdy.
They're very
and-
nerdy, which fits perfectly in San Francisco.
Yeah, it fits with me
Talking
in
about
San Francisco.
hacking into your Wi-Fi and shutting off your power.
Yep. And how you're a Bitcoin baron and stuff like that. Like, his stuff's really great.
Yeah.
And he's very talented. He writes all the stuff and produces it himself, and he gave me a lifetime license to use his music because he's really cool like that. Please don't use his music unless you ask him. But he's a generous and wonderful person, and gave me permission to do so. And hopefully he is listening. But I will continue to give him a shout out because I love his music and hope to collaborate with him for the rest of my life. So, and his. Well, thank you everyone for listening this far.
It's been fun. So episode 2 is down in the record book. So we just need to organize, I guess, some of these letters and try to figure out what to talk about in the future. But it's an open book. We have so much stuff to cover.
Some episodes will be like 30 minutes. Some will be 2 hours. Who knows?
Never know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and we will be back soon. Have a good day.
Packets on packets on packets, got packets on packets on packets on packets on packets on packets, I got packets on packets on packets on packets, I got packets on packets on packets on packets, I got packets on packets on packets on packets, I got packets on packets on packets on packets.